Ponytails podcast. Here we go.
Boom. Hello, everyone. Andres here, and I am the host of the Ponytails podcast. We're back at it again, going through this July series. If you've been with us, if you understand, now we've actually started recording these episodes prior so we can get them more prepared. Now, we promise we don't edit them. So everything you're seeing, we just recorded live, and everything you're about to see is a live recording of the conversation that we have with our guests. The only thing that's changing is it allows us to kind of prep you guys a little bit more for the episode. So we recorded this one in June. If you're listening now, this is in the middle of July. If you're a book kid listening, well, get to the next door. What are you doing? If this is your first episode, welcome to the Ponytails podcast. Let me run you down a little bit about what we do and what we're doing. So about a year and a half ago, Nick Taverdi and I started the show. And we just did it as a hobby. We thought it was a cool idea to talk to people who did this crazy internship with Southwestern Advantage. Now, we're not affiliated with the company itself at all. We're not in any way like employed by them or anything like that. But what we do is we interview the kids or the now adults who left the internship and are doing really cool things. And so what we get to do is ask them about what they're up to, and then they get to share some of the fun stories of going door to door. Now, these people went door to door, well, I guess myself as well, but we went door to door for 80 hours a week, Monday through Saturday. We're talking 8 in the morning till like 10 o'clock at night sometimes even earlier than 8. Doing all sorts of different crazy fun executive exercises in the mornings, getting ourselves jazzed up, and then going door to door selling educational books to families to help them with homework. And they did this in different parts of the country. So I was going to school in Nebraska, and I ended up selling up in New England, and so on and so forth. Now, the company's been around since 1868, so it's been forever. And so there's a ton of people out there who did this whole thing. Some of them for one summer, and they had a brilliant or terrible experience. And some of them for 10, 11, 12, 13 summers, and they had a brilliant or terrible experience. We don't care. All we're here for is to ask them about what they did and how they did it. So hope you guys enjoy the show. Again, thank you for being here on the first one. Or if this is your first one, make sure you guys subscribe in the button right here below. And you can check out some more episodes. We have hundreds of them, over 130 at this point, if you're listening to this one. Now, a couple of shout outs. We do alumni shout outs because all of our partners, all the people that have poured into us are people who all sold books. So who you're about to hear, not just from our guests, but you're about to hear about what some other people are doing all over the country and all over the world. And those people decided to pour into us and support what we're doing here. And so a quick shout out to them. First off, I want to give a shout out to my buddy, Will Metscher. Will is one of my good friends from my time selling books door to door, and he's currently working with Southwestern Consulting. Now, one of the things I enjoyed about going door to door was that I got to change people's lives in a positive way. I hope I did anyway. And that's kind of what we all stuck around for, was to help other people have the great experience that we had as well, even though it was challenging. But the cool thing about that is we were college kids teaching other college kids stuff that they wouldn't learn until, 30s, 40s, 50s, and if at all. And so there's people I've met. In fact, I was just at the doctor today, and I'm like, man, if you would have sold books, you would have just been much better at establishing rapport and making me feel more comfortable about sharing my health stuff with you. And there's people that never learn this stuff, but that's what Will gets to do, is he gets to teach people exactly that. So he is one of Southwestern Consulting's top coaches, and he's looking for people to work with him. So if you like the idea of helping others and helping them have a clearer picture of what they're doing and kind of inspiring them to do better in their life, reach out to Will, reach out to us, and we get you in touch with Will. His team is growing, and everyone has had work with him has earned a 6-figure income. It's phenomenal as far as an opportunity goes. And so if you guys want more details on that, let us know. Reach out to us, message us below, leave a comment, find us on Instagram, send us a DM, and we'll put you in touch with Will so you guys can, maybe look to work with him. Another shout out over to Elevate Wellness. And this is a little bit of an announcement too. Again, if this is your first episode, for sure, listen to this. We are going to Mexico in Cancun, August 15th through the 19th, to Bizzler. We're calling it Bizzler. So if you sold books, you know what the Sizzler trip was. We're doing it Bizzler because we're better. So it's better, sister. And that's going to be August 15th through the 19th. It's any alumni and their spouse, even if they didn't sell books, is invited to come. For details on that, there's a link below. Just click on that. There's a whole 16-minute video that you can watch with details. I think it's 10 minutes now that you can watch for details. Or even below that, there's another link you can just click on, get on, and get signed up to come with us on August 15th through the 19th. We are going to have a blast here in a little over a month. So super excited to be out there. But in order to get ready, to get our bodies in shape and look fit, FIT, not PHIT, in order to look fit, we were working with Elevate Wellness. Now, I just did my chest workout today and my arm workout today. Whoo, it's been a burn. I love it. I used to do my old high school workouts, and I thought that was going to get me all in shape. Nah, these guys really took care of me as far as my coaching goes at the gym. Besides that, in the kitchen, I was eating like garbage, and honestly, I just kind of needed a little bit more of a direction because I didn't know what to buy. Even though here in Portland everything's very organic and everything's really nice and healthy, I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing the right things with my meals, and so these guys also guided me that way. But more importantly, they kept me accountable, so I didn't fizzle out right in that February after the resolution. Right, I kept it up, and it's been a really awesome thing to see. I feel fantastic. My health is great, and I'm looking forward to being ready to be at Bisler. So if you guys want a shout out to them, if you guys want to learn a little bit more about their program, they have a fantastic community of people working with them. A lot of them are book people, so it's a really cool environment to keep yourself motivated. Elevate your life and your mind and your body with Elevate Wellness. Call us. We will get you in touch with them so you guys can get fit. And then last but not least, Cardinal Senior Benefits and with Quintin Roberts and Pedro Vega. So now, one of the things I love about working with these guys is they put their money where their mouth is. A lot of companies that you hear in the world, especially in the insurance world, talk about freedom and flexibility, but at the end of the day, you can kind of be held captive by the availability of your clients, or the time harvest of time in the industry. It's kind of hard to get freedom that way. But with Cardinal, because of the demographic that they serve and the ease at which you can kind of get your leads from, instead of cold calling them, you can kind of mold your schedule to work around what you do personally. So it's a pretty diverse set of agents, and they all have dramatically different situations in their personal lives. Some are married, some are not. It's a variety of stuff. So, for example, Jessica Chappell, she sold books, and Bridget Dugan, formerly known as Bridget Nicholson, they're able to make a pretty good living while keeping their family as their number one priority. They're able to crush it, and they have a solid six-figure income working 15 to 25 hours a week. They're moms. But then you got like Pedro Vega and Quintin Roberts, and they're making six-figure incomes, but they started doing just selling, and then they've been able to transition into the recruiting and training, and they're working about 30 to 45 hours a week, so that's a different situation. But then you got people like Sean Brifo and Greta Huerta, both former guests on the show, and they're able to change their schedule from week to week and month to month. They've been taking advantage of the freedom, where I know Greta was in Mexico for like 10 days, and she just went on her own. They're working about 25 to 35 hours a week, and again, making that six figures. So if you're listening to this and have thought about leaving your job or look for something else, or maybe you're looking for something with more flexibility, you're just kind of unhappy with either the income or the flexibility you have currently, let us know. Cardinal is looking to expand. They don't really care if you reach out to them. They just rather, have you along with it. But if you don't want to, that's totally okay too, as always. So now let me get our guests on the air. A quick introduction. So Andrew Kneisler is with us today. Good friend of Grant Greder's. We'll get into some of that. But Andrew sold 8 summers. So we got an 8-summer bookman here with us today. 89 to 97. Started in 89 with the Diamonds/Rambo organization, which is directly under Lee McCroskey. Shout out to Lee. He went to Kansas State. Nobody's perfect, but is originally from the Wichita, Kansas area, and he worked with Dan Moore and Lee to integrate some maps and technology into the company. So in like 1993, he actually worked in Tennessee, and we'll hear about all the details there. But he had a really cool gig on the in between summers to do some cool stuff and help move the company forward. So on that note, let me bring Andrew onto the screen. Boom. Hello, sir.
Hey.
Sorry about the dig at Kansas State.
That's okay. I got it. I felt it.
I feel like if Grant is a big Husker fan, you probably get that a lot.
Yeah. It's easy to banter with him. That's no big deal. Doesn't scare me.
Doesn't scare you. It just makes you stronger.
It makes me stronger. That's right.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for being on the show. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah.
And let me just start here again for people who are listening to this who sold books. We don't do any pre-approach, which is really counterintuitive for like an interview kind of style of thing. But the reason for that is because we believe in the ability to kind of get to know someone just on the connection of the fact that they sold books, and we test it out every episode. And so far, we haven't missed. So unless this is a total derailment, it's a terrible conversation, we just crash and burn. You know,
Right.
we'll do it that way. So catch us up for those of us listening, people listening in. Where you're coming to us from Kansas City?
Yeah, live in Kansas City, Overland Park, Kansas, on the Kansas side.
So that's awesome. So now you stopped selling books in 1997. So maybe just take your time if you want to, or as brief as you want to, or as in detail as you wish. What happened since 1997 to 2022? Catch us up.
Oh, wow. Gosh. I did work for a sister company, SBR, at the time, which stands for Southwestern Business Resources, which was a headhunting firm. And I categorically won the award for the person that sucked the most in headhunting. So I did a really poor job at working on the phone and trying to figure out how I'm going to recruit somebody in Baltimore, Maryland to go sell technology to somebody else. I didn't understand it. It's pretty young and naive. So I kind of fell flat on my face, and then I started a couple internet companies from that point on in Nashville, and then it ended up just lo and behold ended up in Olathe and Overland Park, Kansas, and coming back to where my roots were and raising a family. So
that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So SBR now I think is thinking ahead, right? That's
Right.
that turned into thinking ahead.
If I think back, it's thinking ahead.
This is gonna be a great episode. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you were in Nashville, you were doing that, you realized that you weren't cut out for it, and then moving back now. So you're in Kansas City and you do real estate
now. Well, yeah. So then I worked on a couple internet companies. Sprint's headquarters was in Kansas City, and I was really kind of actually, there was a moment in there where I worked for JT Olson for a year selling subliminal resume paper to college campuses. And so I was his national sales director, had recruited a couple of campus representatives that were independent reps to sell the paper to the bookstores. And we found really quick that Barnes & Noble owns most of the bookstores. And so we had to go pitch Barnes & Noble. But that's a story for another time. So then as that company met its limit and we sold the big dog, Barnes & Noble, he had to make a decision of what kind of company he was going to either do this headhunting firm with Joel Broadbent, or he was going to do this subliminal resume paper. And so that ended up folding fairly quickly after about, I think 10 months we worked together, and he had to make a decision. And so I'm in Kansas City. Sprint's headquarters is here. I have a computer engineering degree. I have a sales background with Southwestern. So I'd start my own consulting company and go directly to Sprint and start consulting them on some IT, technology, web interface stuff. So starting a few internet businesses, I was able to bring that technology into the telecommunications industry. And then my ex-wife was selling real estate. And as we started having kids, it was hard to carry that torch of helping her clients buy the next house. And that's when I said, what kind of business are we turning down here? And it became a significant number. So then in 2002, I started selling houses door to door.
Oh, wow.
80 hours a week, sometimes more. But I ended up joining a team, like a big, like one of the bigger powerhouses in Kansas City that's been in the top 10 in the nation. Joined their team, got trained under the best. Kind of that's what I got familiar with in Southwestern. And then dedicated 2 years to learning real estate. And then in 2006, I ended up starting Real Nice Homes, which is my team selling real estate in Kansas City. And I just sell residential, some commercial. I've done a few commercial deals, but most of them have been residential.
Okay, so many questions. This is so fun.
Okay. Now, okay, good. Let's start.
Okay, so first of all, did you really go door to door selling houses? Because that is hilarious.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's one of the mecca. You have to if you have these door hangers, and in some cases you want to go on each door and leave your business card. And if you ever thought about selling, would you think about me?
That's
That's
it's
kind of
just
the
branding. It's like marketing, just straight.
well, it's cold relationships. Most of my relationships today are not as cold, but there's cold business and warm business, and that's the cold business part of real estate.
Now that's super interesting because it's like, hey, I'm the house guy.
Right? Yeah.
And this
Right.
is a house.
Right. Right. Do you want your house to be
That's
a real nice home? Yeah. Well, then here's my brand. So
I'm Andrew Kneisler.
that's right. Isn't that nice enough now? I mean, we really do. Uh, my team and throughout the years, I've had a team as big as 9 members and as small as just sold just by myself.
That's
So it's ranged. It hasn't stayed the same.
That's why what and I was gonna follow up with that. So when you first started going door to door selling homes, what were like some of the biggest similarities and then some of the biggest differences that you noticed from like the door to door book selling versus like, real estate?
Oh, just the hours. I mean, I think, gosh, selling as a college student with no other responsibilities, that's all you can do, right? When, you got a family, little kids, you got sports, you've got other activities that are besides just selling, going to the next door and it would get overwhelming. I could, in one day, in one afternoon, I could go down 2 streets and probably get maybe 1 or 2 listings. So it didn't take very long. I didn't have to spend all day to get a couple people to want to talk to
Mm,
me about potentially selling their house. And I didn't have to do that very long. In real estate, we create our own busyness, and that is once I'm assigned to market their property, I'm busy. It's not like I can continue to cold call. It creates
I
a
see.
certain level of marketing, effort, and I've got to get busy helping market their house. So it creates work.
And then were you able to like start using referrals after you kind of got off the ground a little bit that
Right.
way, or that
Right.
makes
Once
sense?
you have now I've sold 1,200 houses in Kansas City. You end up going off of your customer base to see who's next. There's people like Pat Roach or Grant Greder where if they're moving in, moving is moving where not from where you're at. Sometimes you're going to a city you haven't been to before, and I've helped a couple of clients through Pat who's from Chicago, and Grant and I have shared some referrals back and forth between Lincoln and Kansas City. In fact, one of my biggest incoming cities was Lincoln, Nebraska at one point. I
Oh wow.
moved 14 people in one company, so they all
Wow.
bought houses.
That's awesome.
Not all in one week, but over the course of building their company, they kept on recruiting from people they knew in Lincoln. So if you know a realtor in a given spot, then you want to refer them out so that you have a connection of communication.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's a sweet
Yeah.
network to be a part of. Well, because you guys understand each other. It's kind of like with
Right.
Southwestern people, where like you
Right.
speak the same language, so you're like, I
Sure.
get it, man. Here's yeah, and also you can trust them, right? Like you can trust them like Grant, that you can you can
Hmm.
trust them like Pat, and they can trust you
Hmm.
to just know that if you send someone your way, or
Hmm.
vice versa, that they're going to be well taken care of. And
Yeah.
That's a very cool thing.
In the end, there's customer service, and you got to know how somebody's going to treat somebody, whether it's because it's tough. There's not one transaction that's easy. And if somebody says, "Oh, mine was easy," that you don't know what the work was done under the surface, because it's all hard. There's not. I mean, I just canceled a deal at midnight last night. Not last night, the night before, and accepted another offer at 12:02. So like it can get that intense because there's deadlines and we don't have a clock. We have to work when our client needs us.
That's
Pretty crazy.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, so let me ask you this, because we've had some of Pat's folks on here, like we've had some
Mm-hmm.
Southwestern people here, and of course
Mm-hmm.
Pat himself. But I always ask them, and I feel like the answer has been kind of in some ways similar but different. But in your knowledge, I mean, 20 years of this, I'm about to buy a house. Things are
Mm-hmm.
super expensive in Portland, first time home
Mm-hmm.
buyer. What are things
Yep.
I need to know, like right off the bat, that maybe people won't tell me, or like whether it's how to select a good realtor or like if it's, what should I know, I guess, going into this before I
Oh,
buy
yeah,
a home?
yeah. I always say it's like running a hurdle race. And if you focus too much on the finish line, you'll trip over all the hurdles on the way. And so you might as well knock over the first hurdle first, and that's get qualified. Of how much can you afford, and what does that look like for you? Like, what kind of monthly are you looking for? What kind of financial setup is best for you? And then once you have that answer, that's going to prepare you for like where can you afford? Then what are the dynamics of a house that are important to you? And we all do. I do what's called a needs assessment, and that is, hey, what do you need and what do you want, and then what do you desire? Kind of like goal setting, for like these Southwest Consulting or whatever. They're going to tell you, hey, don't convolute a want with a need. What do you really need? What do you want? What do you desire? And so in a house, it can get pretty simple. However, one of the things the bookfield prepared me for was really the dynamics between a husband and wife sitting in the same room, and they have countered opinions on one topic. How many bedrooms do you need? Well, I need 3. No, we need 2. Wait, I'm okay with 1. Like you don't know what the answer is until they speak. Okay. And so when we do our needs assessment, we really kind of hone in on what do you really need? What do you want? And then you'll realize that 2 people want different things, but yet success in our business is 70%. If I get you 70% of what you want, then I won. But I'll get you 100% of what you need. I'll get you the beds, baths, and location and garages and whatever the other features are. In something like Portland, you might not get a garage at your price point. You might not get whatever. I don't know what it is, right? And so
it's so expensive.
Huh?
It's so expensive.
It is. And when I ever have an out of towner, okay, and they're coming to Kansas City, I always say, don't bring your market here. Yeah. Because if you bring your market here, it's not the same. Everything's different. And I mean, gosh, even stucco confuses people because it's a concrete vertical thing that in Minnesota doesn't work because it freezes most of the year there. And so in Kansas City, stucco works. In Arizona, stucco works. But in some markets, it just doesn't make sense. They're like, why would I ever do that? That's strange. And then I'm like, well, first of all, calm down. It's okay. But it doesn't make the house bad. But the architecture does bother them because they don't see themselves there. They didn't grow up with the familiarity. When I lived in Nashville, I love Nashville. I consider Nashville a second home. But I tell people this, that my first summer, I was homesick, and I was homesick because of the long shadows. Now, that doesn't make any sense to you. Maybe Nebraska.
Yeah,
but they're
I know
on
what
the
you mean.
horizon. If there's nothing blocking the sun, your shadow's super long. I think that's the coolest thing. In Kansas, there's nothing blocking my shadow. In Nashville, it's the hills, right? The sun will have it'll hit dusk a lot earlier because of the hills. And so that homesickness, whatever that is, when I'm with a client that's coming from out of state, I want to identify what they consider home to be. And I can't fix everything. Like I can't fix the sun and I can't fix those things, but I can maybe talk about the home and what that means. So I think part of it's just identifying what's important to you in a house and what the needs, wants, and desires are. And that's the first step. What you qualify for, and then what are your needs? And then the rest of it's hunt. You just got to hunt and find it.
Wow, this is brilliant. Can I keep like picking your brain?
Sure. Yeah.
This is cool. This is what I love about this, because it's kind of like just our conversation, just people just listening. But I bet you there's people with the same questions.
Dive in.
Like, so, and I guess this is up to my wife and I to determine. But let's just say we're looking in the $400,000 to $600,000 budget range, something like that. Maybe that's too broad. Even when deciding how much or what our budget or what our finances are like, what are some of the things we should first consider besides our income? Like, is there anything else, or is it just solely based on that, or what is good or bad? Like, I feel like I just want to avoid dumb mistakes is I guess what I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why you use a professional like Pat or Grant or something, because they're going to know the weak parts of a particular area. But if you're trying to, just like territory in the book field, you want to start and then you want to work that territory. Well, when you're buying a house, you put a dot. What's convenient for you in the middle of that dot? Is it a location for church? Is it work? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it conveniences? Is it entertainment? That's the first thing, is where do you want to spend the focal point of your time? And then you radius out what's important to your needs. I think just being in the business 20 years, I always ask my clients, do you have any regrets? Like any surprises on that house that you were not planning for? And there are a few. Some of it's the foundation. Like in our market, I've had 2 clients that bought cinder block basements. And by the time we bought them, it was an ideal basement. Like it was fine, everything was good. But I always say cinder block always weeps. And people don't know what that means. But if you have a cinder block basement, it always weeps. It always has a leaking part to it. It's not meant to keep the moisture out. It's just meant to keep a hole in the ground so you can put your furnace down there. But so they always leak. And what I found is that that's where they regret. Oh, I wish I would have known that before I bought this house. And so sometimes that's what the professional can help you with. Hey, if that's something that's going to bother you, then in the needs assessment, I would have churned through that's important to you. And
very cool.
So working with a professional that knows how to ask those types of questions before you even look at a house, because I can tell you interior design can actually attract you to a house that's probably not right for you.
Oh, see right there, that's something huge for me. Because honestly, like, we're going through Redfin, we're going through Zillow, just kind of, so here's the story. My wife started a new job in February. And so we were approved, but we weren't married, and she was approved and I was approved. But then I was like, well, let's just wait until we're married. You just started a new job. So then it's going to be like 6 months at least before we can even start looking again to get pre-qualified. And so let's just let things like, so now we're coming into that time zone where it's like, we're about 2 weeks away, really, realistically, or a month away before we're like, all right, actually we can start looking again. Right.
Yeah.
But
right.
We just dream, so we're on Zillow, we're on Redfin.
Window shopping. I call it window shopping.
Yeah. Screen shopping. Amazon. But that's something where it's like, we almost exclusively just look at interior design. Right. And then the thought did occur to her. She's like, I bet you these look great, but there's something wrong with them, and didn't even think that, but you mentioned that. I'm like, that is something. So
yeah.
I would have missed it.
Thing that nobody else, only my team does this, because I just figured it out when I was showing so many buyers. But I go off of the 3 L's, and this is when you're shopping. Whoever gets to the no faster can get to the yes faster, right? So it's okay to say no, you don't like a house, right? And so I have this thing called the 3 L's, and that is, if you say no to one of these 3, then you just leave. You don't need to look at the backyard. You don't need to look at the upstairs. You're done with that house. And that is lot, location, and layout. So the lot is where, like, what's around the house? What is it back to? Does it have a fence? How big is it? What are the trees like? That's lot. Okay. Location is just like, hey, what's convenient to it? What's near it? What's fascinating about that area? That's more of an area thing. And then layout is how do you live in the house? Okay, where do we sleep? Where do we play? Where do we work? Where do we entertain? And there's some houses, it's so weird, and you can't get a rhythm to the layout, that you might have the best lot and the best location, but a weird layout, it's a no. And then you just go on to the next house. And I've helped my clients the most with that. I think getting them to say no faster was probably the hardest thing, learning how to do that as a agent, as a buyer's agent. See, we carry 2 hats. I can help you sell a house or help you buy a house, but that's not a buying counsel kind of step. And so take that as you're looking at houses, you guys start walking into them. You can't do that online because you can't figure out location, you can't size up the lot, and you can't figure out the layout until you're in it. So this is only at the house.
So now on that note, so I guess it sounds like based on that though, you have to also be prepared for the abundance mentality, right? Because I feel like sometimes people get attached to those L's, and even though the other one could be even if it's not a total yes, it's like a maybe. Maybe this layout is good, or maybe this whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
The mentality you get is, well, this is the one. There's not going to be you know what I'm
Sca-
saying? Like
Scarcity
it's like a
matters.
scarcity, right?
Mhm.
And so do you want to have plenty of time to buy and not be in a rush and
Right.
just wait for the right house to come along? Is that better? Or is it better to, once you find all three L's, you just like jump in?
Well, no, I think that's, scarcity does kind of affect that a little bit, but it's still the first three yeses. They've all got to be yeses for you to buy it, right? So maybes, to me, I think if it's still a no, it's not a yes. Maybes are going to be killers. Um,
Mm.
but I would say that's just as you're walking through houses, it's easy to let one go when you have a lot to choose from. But if you don't have a lot to choose from, then you have to adjust your needs. See, it's like you go
Yeah.
back to the needs and say, well, I don't need two bathrooms. I need just one. And then you can trim your inventory list. Now, I don't know how scarce it is in Portland, but like in Kansas City, we're at 3,400 homes. And in 2008, when we crashed, we were at 10,500. So you can only crash in a market where there's a surplus. So you can't crash in a low inventory market. You just can't, because the buyer pool is still homeless essentially. And
Right.
so as you're in your market, it's good to talk to the agents that know those numbers. Hey, what's our inventory at? What's the trending? What's
Right.
those things? What's trending in your market? And those are things, again, that's why you work with a local agent. You can still window shop. That's fine. You just won't know those numbers until you get out with a professional.
I'm going to write this down.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, I like
Oh,
it.
write that down. That's good. Write that down.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good
Oh,
thing.
that's good. That's good to write that down. So, okay, that's huge. And actually, I was going to ask you about that because I mean, right now, if you read the news even badly, you're hearing about the economy and Russia stuff and COVID and all this stuff is kind of difficult. But you lived through probably the worst financial crisis, specifically, probably the worst real estate crisis that's ever
Hmm.
been. And
Hmm.
you're sitting there in '06, things are jamming. I mean, I remember I went to school for economics, and my entire last semester we just studied the stock market crash. '06 things were going great. '07 things were firing up. What happened and how did you survive that? Because I mean, I feel like that was a brutal time for the real estate market.
Super
I mean, I know it
scary.
was.
I mean, I made a commitment to provide for my family, and that was spooky. I would average probably 30 to 40 houses a year. Okay, in my market, that's three a month, roughly,
Yeah,
right?
that's good.
As of August of 2008. So we didn't get hit. So the wave hit West Coast to the rest. The center didn't get hit at the same timing
Right.
of and I have a theory on that, and I'll tell you in a second. But um, I only had 13 transactions that year, so one a month, and that's hard, man. I mean, I was always in Southwestern. I was always a customer's kid. I would say I'm going to sell a mufu or a cookbook just to feel like somebody said yes today, just to get a yes. And the uh, the dynamic that I have with real estate and 2008 is that the top five, I call them five, okay, right? The top five are the ones that actually took down the whole market, the
Mm.
national market. So that's Colorado. I'll explain this in a second. California, Arizona, Nevada, and Florida. The other one, Michigan, was over here because of the auto industry. But those five are what we call a secondary market. They have and I would even think Oregon would have the same thing. So you might have a secondary market, okay? We don't have a secondary market in Kansas City, and that is the second home. So most of your investors in Arizona have their primary home in California or somewhere else. Let's call them the winter birds, right? They
Mm.
fly south for the winter type of deal. they have a house somewhere else. So if they're going to foreclose, they foreclose on their secondary house. So those markets all dived because those five ended up letting go of their second house. Well, then all the primary homeowners are now like, well, thanks for nothing, right? Like you
Right.
just took down my value because that's your rental. Well, that's where it really crashed. And Kansas City, we just don't have a secondary market. So in some places, we only went down, I'd say 3%, in some areas of Kansas City, but we didn't really dive like other markets. However, the buyer pool shrunk, so we had transactions that were just like nobody was buying. And it wasn't in 2009, we stepped back up. So it was only about 9 months of just like, where's business going to come from? And then that's when I get back to knocking on doors and trying to find the next person, right? People are always going to be transferred. People are always going to move. People are always going to lose their jobs, and they're going to need to sell. So that's what you lean on in a given market. But man, you're right. That was a scary time in the financial markets. That's my theory, that those secondary markets is what catapulted the rest of the nation to freeze.
That was
In real estate.
brutal.
Yeah, it was very difficult.
I mean, it was brutal. And if anybody watching or listening in and to kind of get even a better understanding of what we're talking about, have you seen The Big Short?
Yeah, I did watch that.
Big Short?
Yeah, I watched that one. That one was
Brilliant.
it was scary. Again, another thing that you sit there and look back at how much that players like that have an influence, and that's scary.
It's such a wild thing to think about, because I studied this back and forward and backwards, and just understanding what it meant to people to have a home be lost like that. Like, just I remember my dad got fired during that time because things started cutting, and that was
Yep.
such a scary time for us.
Sure.
With my dad is and you're right. We didn't really feel it that hard in Nebraska, relatively, right?
Right.
To compared to like the real loss that people were seeing up in the coast. So
Mhm.
man, that's crazy. That's crazy wild.
But you
Crazy
still get
wild
to
that
keep your house. In some cases, you could lose your job and still keep your house a little bit. But
yeah.
some people lost their houses because they didn't have that equity position that they normally would have been there, right? And that's
Yeah.
a bummer. I had many clients that I had to represent and give the bad news to, and in some cases they wrote checks to get out of their house, and that's again the same thing that's difficult,
Difficult.
Yeah.
Now, again, and we should disclose here. Now, we're not financial advisors, so this is nothing that, like, if someone listening, and don't take, financial advice necessarily off. This is just a conversation. But going into 2022 now, and it's the economy's kind of like having a difficult time. You're theorizing again. This is not. We're just talking about housing.
Yeah, we are not
This is
advisors. No series
yeah.
license on either one of us.
We have to disclose that, because like someone's gonna listen to this and go, oh, I'm gonna buy, and then the economy tanks or something, and then we're getting in trouble, so, or whatever.
Okay,
But in
so
your opinion, just very very opinion, just opinion based on your perspective from real estate, is it different this time coming around? Are you nervous about it at all in any way, with how the economy's doing, inflation,
not,
interest rates?
no, not as much. I went through a divorce about 5 years ago now, 4 years ago, and that was more catastrophic than what I'm feeling right now,
Oh, I'm sorry.
because it took my ability to focus. It took away my ability to kind of care for other people away, and so that was scarier than what I'm going through now. Um, and I would say even my clients are happy. Like, when my sellers are grinning, then I'm okay with that. They're making money. I'm having people call me and they've only been in their house 2 or 3 years and they're making money. That's if somebody called me early in my career and they'd only been in their house 3 years, I'm like, you got to stay 5. In order to make any money, it's not worth it to sell in 3 years. But so that's different, and that's why I'm not so concerned about it right now. And with inventory being so low, we haven't experienced that. Actually, I don't know a time when inventory has been this low for this long, and so we'll see. But
Yeah.
At some point, it's got to make a turn because markets always do, and it'll be a different story. At some point, in every market's a little different. Portland's different. I've had clients that 3 years ago said, "Hey, I don't want to move because I don't want to spend more today, and I'll just stay where I'm at." And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." Well, 3 years later, that house that was at 300,000 is now at 450.
Oh
And I'm
man.
like, "Oh, you could have gotten that 150 difference. If you'd have bought at 300, you would have a 450 house." So what did they give up? They took a risk of saying, "I'm going to stay put." And so it's hard to know in any given market what to do, but I'm not too worried about it. I think, I'm willing to work and willing to hunt and find the next prospect. So
That's a bookman right there.
It's not the territory.
That's a bookman right there, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, that's awesome.
Look out.
That's so awesome. In your time in real estate and with you say you had a fluctuation of like a 9-person team or all the way down to just yourself. From the leadership standpoint, what stuff did you take from the bookfield to kind of help you navigate that process of like managing a team of people selling homes and kind of replicating yourself?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I cut my teeth so many years in Southwestern not wanting to be a manager that I really I realize that your heart has to be into it, and you really, gosh, you got to put yourself aside for so many things, and so that's why my team's has fluctuated. When my kids were really small, I had a bigger team on real estate, and as my kids have gotten older, I find that they need dad more. They just need me around. They need me even when there's nothing going on. They just need to talk or need somebody to listen. And so I found that the smaller my team is now is better for my kids. And so, Southwestern's an anomaly because it was the focal point of it, and maybe the training that I got from it was, you shut out the rest of the world and just focus on doing one thing. And that's Southwestern, right? And to me, that didn't help me, I don't think, because there's other areas of my life that I think I live amongst my community and thrive. And I think the training part of Southwestern was good. The discipline, the accountability, some of the ideas, but maybe the reality of taking that into the real world was very difficult for me. That was hard for me. So I incorporated some things in my training because I didn't want to work with anybody that had already been in the business. So when I recruited an agent to come sell houses for me, my requirement was you could not have worked for anybody else. So that I took that, let's call it that green aspect of a rookie bookfield person, seriously, that, hey, they don't know anything. So whatever I train them, that's going to be the first thing they learn, and that's how they're going to learn the business. And so I just incorporated that into anybody that I've worked with. I don't recruit off of other people's teams and then have somebody sell for me, because they come with different habits and one of my agents that worked for me back in 2007, he started, and that to me was a big testament to my training to him, because he went and started another brokerage in a different city. So I was
there you go.
Yeah, it's a good guy in Manhattan, Kansas, K-State of all places. So I'm very happy for him. So he didn't sell
Wildcats.
That's Wildcat. Come on, it's easy. It's not that hard. Come on.
I can't even spell.
Doesn't have anything. Nebraska doesn't have any hand movements. How do you make an N? I mean, I don't even know how to make an N with my hands. I mean,
we go. I don't know. We can't spell. That's why I can't even spell UNL.
That's right. You can't. True.
I don't know. I have no idea. We can't spell. That's the worth of my education. I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. Listen, I got a here you go. Here's the answer. I got a degree in economics and math, and my job is to talk to random people about door-to-door stuff. I'm not using my degree for anything. Like,
what was the highest level? Okay, I have a good question for you. I'm very curious. What was the highest level of math? What was the most interesting math course that you took?
Oh, I love that you asked me this. I think
Yeah.
I've only talked about this with one other person who I think it was Courtney. Great question. Oh, I love this. I'm nerding about this. Okay.
I'm very curious.
So math is weird. Math is the
It
only subject that you have to know something before you get to the next thing.
builds on it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's like history, and I'm sorry if this is like a roundabout way of answering the question, but it will make sense, I promise. But history, right? You can learn about World War II before you learn about World War One. Really, like you don't have to, right? In fact, there's people that don't even learn American history.
Sure, I know. Yeah, good point. Good point.
So, and they know about World War II. But math, it doesn't work like that. You have to, and also like even in history, even if you go chronologically in history, even if you kind of got World War One, you don't really understand, but you could totally get World War II, and you kind of got World War One. It doesn't really work like that in math. Like you have to know what happens.
Right.
So the levels go like pre-algebra, geometry is kind of here to the side on its own thing. You got algebra, right? Really advanced algebra. And then you go calculus.
Right.
And then when you get to calculus, you go to calculus 2, and then past calc 2, you go to calc 3, and then it kind of spreads, and it's weird. Because you get to the point in math, and again, this is a very undergrad stuff, but even undergrad stuff, you have to kind of pick the one direction you go into grad school, because you could have someone who's all about differential equations or knows a lot about game theory, who doesn't know about or is not as familiar with other stuff, because it just spreads so gray, and you start finding out that math is actually not as black and white. People always go, "Oh, 2 + 2 is 2." I love math because it's like, no, actually, that's not how it works. You get to a point where the answer to the question is not what 3 or 75 pi or something, right? It's like there is no answer.
You're
Like
right.
everybody jokes about the limit doesn't exist. So the
Limit
question is
doesn't
asking
exist.
is there even an answer to this question?
Mhm.
And it's a yes or no question, but you have to prove why. So
Sure.
I got to this level of math where the most interesting class I thought we took was called, well, really it was linear algebra is what it's called. And basically it's just proofs, but it's just a little level past proof. So so like day one, the teacher's like, oh, you gotta explain why the square root of 2 is not an irrational number or is a irrational number. That's it. There wasn't no like, I want you to do it in a paragraph. No, nothing. It was just
Yeah.
that's the homework assignment. And you're like,
Yeah.
what
Right.
the hell?
Right.
That's day one. Like that was the
You just have to
syllabus week.
prove something, right? Like you
Yeah.
just have to have one proof, right? Yeah.
And you get to the point where, and eventually I also took a thing called game theory, or group theory. But anyway, the idea of this course was to like find a way to make things make sense. So you would take like a concept. One of my favorite ones was we did these things called mods, and so mods were used to understand big numbers, because the human brain is really not designed to understand anything above like a couple thousand. You know what I mean? Like if I showed you a map of a picture of a crowd of 50,000 people, or a picture of a crowd of like 500,000 people, you would like to think that you actually could tell the difference. Like if I just point blank didn't tell you how many people is this, you could guess 50,000 or 500,000, and you really wouldn't know, because we're not designed to like really understand what that looks like.
Right.
So in order to understand what that looks like, you have to start you start breaking numbers up. Instead of base 10, you break them in different bases. That was my dog. And so basically so like you'd be like mod 6, which basically means 6. So you would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
And then it would be 1, 0.
Right.
1,
Like
2, 3,
hex,
4,
or
5.
it's like any kind of, it's like hex or any other
Yeah.
version of numbers, right? Like
Yeah.
ASCII
So
code, just 2 numbers, right?
yeah, like binary code is 1 and 2, right? It's 0, 1, 0, 1.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
you go back to 0 after the mod, right? So if it was mod 7, you'd be 1, 2,
Okay,
3, 4,
mod.
6,
That's
7.
yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Okay.
7, 0. But 20 actually was 14 in base 10. Does that make
Yep.
sense? It's
I'm
so
totally.
and so
No,
so
I'm
you
a
would get
computer
this.
engineer. So
Oh yeah,
computer
so you
engineer,
get it. Yeah.
I took a lot. I'm curious about your classes because I taught some of these, so
Yeah.
I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, you're with me. Oh, so you know what linear algebra is. Oh, yeah. So you're with me. So, like, for example, like when we started getting into mods and proving them, and like using that to then prove other stuff, it just,
Yeah.
you started really understanding. Like, it was the first time in math that it wasn't like memorize this equation.
Right.
Because when we had to do that, like shit, when we got to Taylor series and Calc 2, it was like, I mean, I would have homework assignments that looked like Einstein's equations. Like and you could just read them. You know what I mean? Like you understand, like I still have a picture of it somewhere on my Instagram. I'm like, I can't believe I just did this. Like it was kind of a proud moment because you would look back at the end of your homework assignment and it was like stacks of papers. Like the way you see in the cartoons, they don't exaggerate that. It's like legit. This is what
Good
it
Will
is.
Hunting, like that. That
Yes.
Good Will Hunting with the thing. Yeah. Like no one knows what stuff's going on, but it's very
but you do.
Yeah. Well, a part of it, not all of it. But.
Yeah, well, not anymore. But my brain. So I loved it because it was the first time that I was able to just really use my brain to think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I haven't been good at anything in life, really. Like it's talking to people and math. When I moved here, I didn't speak English, and the only thing that made me feel normal was math class because I understood that language. You know, and so.
That's
I didn't feel dumb anymore when it was like it was English class and I couldn't pronounce it. People made fun of the way I talked, right? Like I couldn't understand. But when it was math time, multiplication time, I was the first kid to get done. Like, you know, you did those minute drills where you'd be like, all right, we're gonna do 100 problems in a minute or whatever. First, however, the most you can get it. And I was always like top, right?
Yeah.
My SAT, ACT math scores were always, I got a 35 in the math section of the ACT. I was perfect. But then like a 19 in the English section.
Yeah. I was 32 in math and a lot lower than that in the other
Not
stuff.
good.
Yeah,
now I could read it and I understood it, but I just would run out of time. I'm like, I can't.
I really like that you said that, you know, you did not have the language down, but numbers are universal. Typically, they're not 100% universal, but you had something of concept of I knew these numbers and I could get to an answer. And there's this thing in psychology that, hey, we have a need to belong. And numbers made you feel like you belonged, even though you couldn't speak the language. I like that.
Not only belong, it made me feel like I was actually smart because everything else in the world was telling me I was different. I don't belong here. Like you said, I'm
that's
stupid.
So cool.
I'm not welcomed. Right. And here it's like, no, I'm smart. I am smart. Look at me. Right. Now we find out later on that smart means it's so relative. Like you could have someone who's musically smart, who's like amazing at the piano, but just sucks at like talking to people. Or on the other hand, you got Hitler, who was amazing at talking to people, but terrible at being compassionate. Right.
Or discernment.
Right. LeBron James can dunk a basketball better than probably anybody ever. And then, but who knows what he's not good at. Right. Maybe he can't read or whatever.
Who knows?
Yeah. But that was my thing. My thing was math. My logical intelligence was
that's great.
And it worked. And so, I just loved it. And I fell in love with it. And so that class, it was just such a fun class because I was able to hone in on that and feel, because I was struggling in college. I flunked out of college twice. It took me 7.5 years to graduate. But math
and Nebraska, that's even hard to do in Nebraska.
I know. That's how. Check out the big brain on Andres. But my sister-in-law, you've met Aisha probably. If you know Grant, you've met Aisha and Danny, my brother Danny, and so and Aisha was in class with
Danny a couple times when I first met you, so that's okay.
No worries, happens. My parents did it too. So, but Aisha was in math class with me, and she's so competitive. It's really funny.
Oh yeah,
she's gonna hate that I'm saying this on the air, but I was in math class with her. And so oftentimes the one class I didn't have to study for was math because we'd go to the same math class and she would spend hours with me. Like I'm studying for my other classes and we'd spend hours I would study a lick and then we'd go take the test and she would get like a 95 because she worked really hard for it. She'd be like, what'd you get? I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's so not important. Like, I promise you, it's really not. She goes, what did you get?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, fine. I got a 98. And she would hit me. And so it was, but it made me feel smart to go to those classes. And I loved linear algebra. So fun.
Linear algebra, it was a good course because the proofs part that you're talking about, to be right, to prove it to be right, there is an answer, right? And you can justify it and claim it. And I got this whole thing.
I did.
I took 2 math classes because I was fascinated by it too, and that I use today. And one is discrete math. Did you take a class called discrete math?
Yeah, it was. I liked it.
It was very difficult because it was also it was a lot of probability, right? So it was like one, if you have a yellow, green, and a blue marbles, how many times you have to grab if you have 30 of each to grab a red marble? And I'm like, oh, I have no idea. So that kind of thing, right? But and statistics, and so combining real estate and combining book selling, which is a numbers game, mathematically, right? Hey, if I do 30 demos, I'm going to get something. The other part with real estate is that your listing is all data. Whenever I sell a property, it's really just the data that I'm selling. I have some marketing ideas that work, but if my data is input wrong, if I put the wrong beds and baths, if I put the wrong car garage, if I put the wrong square footage on the house, or if I put the wrong square footage on the acreage, you're not going to be found by the person that could buy you. So I turned it into probability and statistics that, hey, listen, hey, the standard deviation is if you were to sell here, here's where you go. If you were to buy here, a certain percentage of the inventory is in this bell curve. And so I use that more than anything on math. That's why I was fascinated by the curiosity of what you do. And I bet no matter what you do in the editing of all these videos, I bet it narrows down to some cool math stuff you learned in some of your classes. I'm sure there is. There's something in it. And so I'm fascinated by that stuff, and I'm impressed. So
my team is going to be laughing when they hear this because they're going to be like, "Yep, he just harps on numbers and statistics all the freaking time." And that's what it is. And that's you just got to know. It's funny that you say I took discrete math as a prereq for what ended up becoming econometrics, which is the craziest.
Well, that sounds like a weird class. Yeah,
Calc 2 and econometrics were the two hardest math classes because stats is such a different field of math that it's just almost like a whole.
So is, yeah.
I don't even know if you would call it math, but discrete math also. Have you read the book Thinking Fast and Slow?
Huh.
Oh, it's amazing.
I would read that. Who wrote that?
Beautiful.
Is that a Roger Side book? Are you pitching another Roger Side book? I reprogrammed my mind with Roger Side. What am I doing? I don't know what to do.
Oh, Roger Side. By the way, go check out that episode if you haven't.
Yeah, no, I know Roger. Right?
It's so fun. Roger's awesome. But Daniel Kahneman, I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Kahneman. But anyway, it talks about how the brain has two systems in it. System one is your like natural, kind of like intuition brain, and your system two is the only brain that can kind of like actually think, but it's lazy by nature. And the other one's more hardworking. There it is. Thank you, Amy. Daniel Kahneman. Phenomenal book. It's got a heavy read, and he's kind of repetitive, to be honest with you, but it's worth reading throughout. Basically, what he talks about is there's like certain aspects of things that you can prime people for in sales and or other things to kind of get them to think a certain way or talk a certain way, whether it's politics or sales or whatever. And we'll put the link below on the comments. But and then there's also like the second part, which kind of challenges and checks your intuition to make sure you're not making some stupid mistake by just jumping into things. So yeah, it's brilliant. But it talks about statistics quite a bit, and it talks about like large numbers, small numbers, and like how people think that they are making good decisions and they're good at making good decisions, but in fact, it's actually just all based on statistical data that you're probably going to be one of these people. And yeah, phenomenal book. I
like the idea of it because I think with the psychology of ADD and selling books door to door, there was this immediate, feedback that I got that, hey, I got a yes or a no. And so it fed my ADD better than anything else that I've ever done. But it also revealed that I didn't really deal with it at a young age. I should have probably hampered down on slowing down my thought and my speech, but that's okay. I mean, I'm just saying that's an interesting book, and I'll read it.
Yeah, it's quite brilliant. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a really cool example of what he uses. He talks about the idea, and this kind of has to do with like the buying atmosphere, or not the buying atmosphere, excuse me, the price buildup. So if I was to ask you, what do you think? How tall do you think is the tallest tree in the redwood forest in feet? If you just had to guess,
275 feet.
275 feet. Okay, that's pretty spot on. I think it's like 315 or something like that. So you're pretty on right now. So that's good. That's what he says. That's all fine. People could probably generally kind of give or take what that is. But if I was to say, do you think that the tallest redwood is more than 1,200 feet or less than 1,200 feet? So then at first you're like, well, probably less, right? Normally most people would be like, oh, probably less, because 1,200 feet, that seems like a lot. Probably less. Okay. Then I would ask you, do you think the tallest redwood is more than 200 feet or less than 200 feet? And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Because I gave you 1,200.
Right.
So now you're thinking, that's got to be way more.
Right.
Okay, what about 500 feet? And they're like, oh, probably more than 500, probably 700.
Yeah.
And
you're
so
playing
because
with the way that I assess or estimate. Yeah, that's very hard.
Yes, exactly right. So he talks, so like, for example, with the price buildup, we would do that all the freaking time, where the books would be like $500, right? But we'd be like, Mrs. Jones, if you're talking about college textbooks, they cost $200 for one subject. This is 42 subjects and there's 6 books. So, most parents are thinking it's going to be 3,000, 4,000, 5. I mean, John over next door.
Last time you were in the book field, that's too easy.
2016.
That's really good. I wouldn't have said
that. Math brain, memory, like
that's
where this is where I excelled. So, but yes, it'd be like, all right, so $6,000, but it's not 6,000. It's not $59.99 or $59.98. It's actually 500 or it's $499. That's not bad, right? So like you use that technique to essentially like make people think it's going to be bigger than it is.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden it just seems so cheap. Yeah. And so he talks about like the psychology of that. So your intuition system 1 brain thinks 1,200 feet is a lot, right? Because you put that number in my head.
Yeah.
But then like system 2 checks in and goes, wait a minute, okay, so that's gonna be a quarter of a mile. There's no way a tree is a quarter of a mile. And then like that's the checker is your system 2. So he talks about how to maximize both, so that you can like really excel when you're making decisions and you can think fast and slow, which is then that's
I like it. Yeah, I like
hard recommendation. Anyway, sorry.
I'm game.
Total tangent. Do you want to know the craziest thing I learned about myself in the book field, and then we can go into your book experience?
What's that?
Was I have an odd memory. I have the weirdest. We were doing green cards. You remember green cards, right? You collect the names, and then you take the Sunday school to kind of map out how you were going to do your deliveries based on the clusters. My brain is so weird that I remembered everybody. So when Yvette was trying to teach me why it was important to have the green cards organized, I'm like, I don't understand. Like, why don't you just go to the ones that live next to each other? And she'd be like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, because for example, I know that this person and let's see, this person and this person, I know that they live like 2 blocks from each other. So why wouldn't I just do that? And she goes, you can remember that? I go, oh yeah. And they owe me $344.69.
You knew the number. Yeah.
Right. Like I just knew in my head, remember, I'm 18. I didn't know anything other than this. And so in my head, I'm like, wait, doesn't everybody know this? Isn't this normal? And my student manager, Steve, was like, dude, you're weird.
Yeah. No, I like your brain because we think a lot of the same ways. And my maps, sometimes I didn't even need them to go back through deliveries. And then I hear Dave Rosen. Dave Rosen's like, no, I had to deliver it then because I would not know where to go if I had to deliver at the end of the summer. I mean, like, I'm like, oh, I wish I could think that way because I would have sold as much as you did. But no, there's a difference in that. And no, I can still go back today. I can go back to Franklin and I can go down streets and sold them, didn't sell them. They got 3 kids. They got this, they got that. I could do it today and I would be 80% accurate, but for some reason I still have the maps in my head, and that's just how my brain works. I don't know.
I could drive from this place where I'm at right now, to some of my customers from here, interstates and all, without needing a map from here.
Isn't that crazy?
That's so weird.
That is very wacky. And again, I'm glad you're saying that because I don't think I identified that was special or unique until now. But the way that you're explaining it makes sense that not everybody can process that way, can store it even in memory. It's hard.
Yeah, and I was talking to Mitchell Steffen. By the way, because this might sound like, oh, we're so smart. No, that's not what that means. It just means that we can do this, but there's things that other people could do that we couldn't do. For example,
I can't do anything with music. I'm telling you.
Matt Atchison.
Yeah.
Oh, he could sell to anybody in any territory, in any states, at any time of the day, no matter what. Just something about the way that he could do it. to him, it makes sense because that's what's easy for him.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there's some people that'll tell you right here, territory matters. And it does for some people, because some people fit better to go sell in the country, right? They just were
Right.
more comfortable. And some people were better selling in suburbs. And it didn't make them better, worse, or people or sales. It just, there's some people that just had this gene to be able to sell so well. I didn't have that.
Right. Me neither.
That wasn't me. I just was good at remembering people's names and remembering, like, other people's names. And so, like, when it came to using names, I was so good at that because I was like, oh yeah, Andrew, Iba, he's got his boys, and they play the basketball. Those guys are so nice. And he's Andrew has this like,
you remembered it, yeah.
And people would be like, how do you remember all this stuff?
Yeah,
because I was there. You know what I'm talking about. I relate.
Our brains are very similar in that concept for sure. I had a lady in I want to say this was in Louisiana when I sold in Louisiana, and her name was Candy Apple. She was a first grade teacher, and at every door I go, if you know Candy Apple. I mean, I said Candy Apple probably 8,000 times the summer of '91 because Candy Apple I sold early in the summer. And it was an easy name to say at the porch. But yeah, Candy Apple.
How could you forget Candy Apple 25 years later? Like, you can't.
Who gets a name like that, number one? That's the weird part. But
poor lady. No, okay.
I don't know why.
So all right. So I think it's a good time to switch into some Southwestern stuff, if that's cool with you. Sorry, we just got on a tangent. I'm sorry about that, but you know what? Honestly,
I like it.
We're having a good time.
Yeah.
Let me give a quick shout out to some more friends of ours, and then do you need to use the bathroom or anything at all?
Yeah, I'm gonna go do that.
Actually, yeah, this is a good time. I always tell our guests this is a good time for this. Shout outs and recognition are coming, so
okay,
we'll see you in a sec. Yes. Hey guys, wanted to do a quick shout out to some of our friends of the show. Starting out with our good friend over at Southwestern Real Estate, Pat Roach. Southwestern Real Estate, by the way, thanks for the shirt, Pat. This is so fun, super comfortable. And if you take care of your agents and of your company, as well as you take care of your merch, I can't imagine how nice it must be to work with you. But so Pat is doing a really phenomenal thing. These guys are in 14 different states. And if you guys are looking to switch gears into maybe a different industry, maybe what Andrew's saying sounds fantastic, and you want to learn a little bit more about real estate, I would say this is a good opportunity to call Pat. Now, if you sold books, you get an automatic interview with Pat Roach, which is pretty cool. But a little bit about what they're doing. So pretty flexible schedule that they're working with. Every one of their guests that we had, agents that we've had on as guests, have talked about the flexibility. And more importantly, honestly, guys, it's the culture. 99% drama free for a reason. Pat took all the good things about Southwestern, left out all the bad, kept 1%, and then kept that as part of his company. And it's pretty fun. And you could tell that they're having a blast here. The community that they have there is great. If you haven't heard the Derby meetings that Nick has been doing with Pat and some of the other jockeys we have, Pat's talked a lot about culture and how to build a good company culture. Phenomenal opportunity for you guys. And honestly, solid income. Of course, we were just talking about how good the income is in real estate. So reach out to us. We'll put you in touch with Pat. Thank you so much, my good friend, for believing in us. Next up, we have Dillon Barr, Thought Leader. I love Dillon. He's probably one of the funniest book guys that ever lived. And sorry, Brandon, I know you're a stand-up comic, but Brandon Q, sorry about that. Dillon Barr is probably funnier. And I just love working with Dillon. Now, Dillon is in a company called Thought Leader. These guys are helping people do TED Talks, and they have partnered exclusively with us to get more people onto their team. Fantastic earning potential here, guys. And it's pretty high standard. So this is like, you have to have a pretty solid rap sheet in the Southwestern world to even probably apply. But they're looking for high caliber people. 2 roles, SDRs. SDRs are calling warm leads, people who are like, hey, I want to do a TED Talk. How do I do it? You have a program to help me do this. How do I do it? And you have to qualify them, make sure that the talk is the right fit, make sure that they're the right fit for the program. If they are, you set them up with an enrollment advisor. Now, an SDR is going to earn anywhere between 50 to sometimes 75, maybe a little bit more a year, plus a couple other benefits. And then the enrollment advisor is the second role, which is you're going to take that lead that has been qualified and you're going to close them. And so essentially you're waking up, your calendar's filled with people. You don't have to worry about sit downs. They're already there for you. It's like go to every sit down that another person has set for you. And you're going to make sure that the person is actually there. Now you're having conversations with probably some of the most interesting people in the world because they're doing TED Talks, which is pretty awesome. And so that's about 130 to 200 plus a year in earnings. If you guys want more information, please reach out to db@thoughtleader.com. That's Dillon Barr. So db@thought-leader.com. It's there on the screen. A great opportunity. Dillon is the head of executive of the customer experience and the head of sales there at Thought Leader. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And then last but not least, one more shout out to Cardinal. Cardinal, you guys, it's a final expense company. Final expense insurance company, and they are fantastic. They started 4 years ago with Nick Dale and Pedro Vega. They have doubled or tripled in growth every year after year, and they're looking to expand. So right now there's a $500 referral bonus that's going out to anybody that gets recommended. Just so you guys know, have an idea of what you're dealing with here. We're talking about set your own schedule. The difference here is that you set the schedule, not your clients. And you don't set your schedule around your clients. You set your schedule around your kids or your life or your marriage or the things that you care about. And of course, multiple agents, book people and non-book people actually, but most of them are book people who are earning anywhere between 12 to 15,000 a week, working anywhere between 25 to 35 hours. It almost seems illegal. As a Colombian, I promise you, there's only maybe one or two other things in life you can do that you can make that much money legally. And so it's a phenomenal opportunity for you guys to work there. Of course, the culture is phenomenal. Sean Brifo, Greta Huerta, Pedro Vega. We're talking about some high caliber people who are doing great things. It's not a bad group of people to be a part of. And so make sure you guys reach out to us. There is a link below that you can click on, and then you can get referrals there. So you can refer yourself or somebody you know, preferably book people, but they're okay with none. So that is Cardinal. Thank you guys so much. Love you lots. Andrew, let me bring you back on the screen. Boom. Hello, sir. Welcome back.
Hey, we're back. There you go.
Okay, so let's switch gears real quick. I started talking about some Southwestern stuff, but usually it's good to go chronologically when it comes to your experience with the door stuff. So let's wind the clocks back. You're sitting in Kansas State Wildcats, and it's almost the summer of 1989. What the heck are you doing? How did you get involved with this crazy adventure of going and selling books door to door?
Oh, good question. Mine was a random phone call. I was in my dorms. Roger Dirksen called up, and I was pretty skeptical with that first phone call, and I was like, okay, number one, I don't believe it. It seems kind of cheesy and wrong, and people have been, taken in vans and never seen again. And I saw I saw the magazine salesmen that were in my neighborhood growing up, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of doesn't seem right, but I want to investigate it. The main reason I was curious is because he had the recruiting session at our career education center. It's called the Career Resource Center. And so this is where all the companies come through to hire people for whatever degree you got, right? So I found that fascinating that, okay, why would the university allow them in that space and for something that was a scam? Like that was credibility to me. So when I went in there, I was really gullible. I mean, I just went after everything he said, and I was like, whoa, okay, so if you do that, you get this. And I've got 5 older brothers, okay? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Chris, and then I got a little sister, Kathleen. So there's 7 of us in our household, right?
Hold on. You got brothers named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John?
Yeah.
Your family is absolutely Muslim, right? Obviously Muslim.
Mostly Muslim, a little bit of Hindu, and we had lots of incense. I don't know what's up with that, but No,
That's how random those names are.
straight up Catholic. Straight up Catholic. Nobody else was Catholic in our town. I grew up in a small town of 900, and there were 9 in our family, and that made us 1% of the population in our house. So it's just weird. But being the youngest, my brothers had tried things and done things, so I was still skeptical, and but yet I was super competitive, and I was the ugly competitive. Like I would insult you just to feel like I got a one up. Like I wasn't a very good competitive person. Okay, I liked playing and doing games and being competitive, but I just wasn't pretty at it. I was pretty ugly at it, to be honest. And so in this interview, I'm super competitive with these 2 other nobodies. So I'm trying to impress Roger that I'm the one he needs to choose out of these 2 other interviewed kids. And I think he signed 2 out of the 3, if I remember right. And she didn't last beyond the second or third follow up. But no, I was pretty eager and naive and I just I needed money. I tell you what, I was looking at no more Pell Grant, and I had no money to pay for school. So my parents really didn't have much income to pay for college. That wasn't an option for us. My dad was really dedicated to getting us through high school with a Catholic school education. So I went away to boarding school for high school. So I was in boarding school for 4 years before I went to K-State. So this was February of my freshman year, this opportunity to get away from Kansas. And, I didn't have a car. Shoot, I barely had shoes, to be honest. I'm not joking. I had no money to my name. I was just in school because I had a Pell Grant, and that's what got me through the first year. So I had no idea how I was paying for tuition. I really had no idea. And so it became a purpose, and then I'm like, well, Roger Dirksen, I love the guy's heart, but man, he wasn't blowing me over with like, oh, I want to be like him right away, right? But fancy that, like, I think it was my second follow up or the next day, Lee McCroskey, he made me go to this Lee McCroskey session, and I'm like, the guy's from Wichita. That he's done this like a majority of his, adult life. And I'm like, why would he be doing this if he was a putz? Like, why would he be suckered into this, So I could relate to Lee really well. And I don't think Lee liked me, but it was okay. I wanted to be liked by him, And so I found that I will just grit it out and get through all the spring semester just to get to Nashville and get started. So that's how I got rolling. So,
oh man, it's hard to meet Lee McCroskey and not just want to spend time with him.
Right. True. And his wife, Deb.
Oh my gosh. Deb is amazing.
Deb would come to a few sessions. I'm like, okay, now she's hot. Sorry, Deb. I mean, if you watch this, she's good looking. And I'm like, with Lee, what the heck? So it was easy to want to be like them, kind of as a 18-year-old
goals.
Huh?
Goals. They were goals.
Yeah. Or just,
someday.
Hey, wow, you figured some things out in life, and I'm just barely getting started. So yeah. And he was funny, and I wanted to bring friends to introduce him because he made me laugh. And I found that, hey, people weren't so impressed by the job because it scares the pants off of you, but yet they were still impressed with Lee, and that kind of maybe was the hinge that kept me kind of going, okay, it's been around since the Civil War. Someone like Lee McCroskey is a product of it. Okay, at least I got that much going for me. And so I didn't realize how intertwined Lee was with sales school, and he hadn't even, he was still starting Dr. Rock at the time. So like, of course, our crew felt like we owned Lee, and we were like cheering him on, and so he wasn't like this master of ceremonies type that he earned the right to be, In fact, my first summer was his last summer. He moved into that title after my summer.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I got to take this quick second. I'm sorry we'll get into the first sales school in summer and stuff because I have so many questions about summer of '89. But I got to give a quick shout out to Deb because we had I don't know if you know this, but we launched our beer. We have a beer.
Oh, you do? Haha.
Yeah, we're currently working on distribution of it, and actually, it's actually going along pretty well now again. And so
Where's beer being made?
It's being made in Florida.
In Florida,
But
okay.
we had to figure out how to distribute it to. Basically, what's happening is we have we call it our stable. So basically, if you're a fan of the show for free, you can just sign up to our newsletter, right, or a text messaging thing where like a new episode comes out, or anything cool, any fun news comes out, big announcements, you can just like get that. But then, if you want to get more involved, you want to support us, there's like a financial tiers that you can support us with monthly, and then that gets you either discounts on merch or you get like a bunch of different stuff. Well, one of those things is you get to get beer sent to you, so you get a 4-pack of our beer so you can watch the show and just drink a beer and just have fun, maybe like whatever, right? So it's a fun thing. And so Heather, so Heather,
okay, got it.
Yeah. So Heather Dutton's the one that brews our beer. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is because we were doing like a beer launch. We're doing all over the country. We're going, and we're kind of doing like quick alumni meetings where people can come out and taste the beer and kind of get to know us a little bit. Just kind of like a good marketing play, just to kind of raise awareness of what we're doing in the alumni communities throughout the major cities of the U.S. We are in Nashville naturally because I mean it's of Nashville,
course.
Right? And we did this event at Lee's house, and so we had hors d'oeuvres and but the planning of it was kind of like we had to kind of like assemble it quickly, and we had some obstacles because of course things happen, car issues and stuff. And Deb stepped up and totally helped us get set up in their backyard, and they have a beautiful backyard scene. They have like a pool, and it's really nice. And Deb totally made it happen. I mean, we couldn't have done without her. So just huge shout out to them. Love them both. They're awesome people. Lee will be back on the show. He was already if you guys are listening and you want to check out his episode,
a while back.
You could check it out up in the top corner. There should be able to click on the link. You can click on there. But he'll be back on the show again. You can't have one episode of Lee McCroskey. You have to have
that's right.
You have to have multiple.
Double dose.
Multiple episodes. Anyway, big shout out to them. Anyway, okay. So back to this. So Lee McCroskey, you're hooked. Ain't no way you ain't stopping you.
Right.
It's summer of '89, and you go to sales school. Now, small Wichita, Kansas, even Wichita, even Kansas State, but sales school, Mort Utley, whole different conversation of culture shock. What was that like to go to sales school?
Oh, I mean, that was intriguing. I was impressed on how well it was organized, and there was a part of me that was just so scared. I just remember just this anxiety that was deep in my core, just like, I don't want to do this. But I just remember going, I'm just impressed. Like, this is fun. I'm having a good time in those moments that it was entertaining. And I don't know. I just tried to put that feeling aside so that I could get through sales school. It wasn't until halfway through sales school that that our crew was going to be in Western Tennessee, and Central Tennessee. That was our territory. So then I'm like, okay, that's kind of crazy, and that was kind of an interesting match. I really liked the speakers, and I liked the way it was organized, the way that they led into each day, and it really helped me kind of process what so much of what I just was scared about. And I mean, addressing everything from dogs to handling headquarters to handling all sorts of stuff that never even thought about before. So it was impressive to me. Sales school was impressive.
They had the dogology thought of, like everything. Was
Dogology. Yeah. JT Olson. Yeah, for sure.
JT Olson. Yeah. So I saw JT. I met JT. By the way, he's also going to be on the show. But I met JT at Lee's house, and he was like, "Yeah, I was the first person to taught dogology." I was like,
he was good at it too, man. I'm telling you. He just came here to Kansas City, and we spent some time together with him and his wife. And I support a ministry that he's in, and and I go, man, your stage presence is is one of a kind, and because he's speaking at some churches here. And I go, man, keep it up, because I'll come watch you wherever you're at, because he's entertaining. And most of it started from the dogology presentation. So he got me. So what's that? I can't see it.
If you can't read it, it says JT Olson. Call JT Olson. I have to,
JT Olson. Yeah, definitely.
I literally have it on my screen because when I met him, he's like, "Yeah, I'll do a show." And I'm like, "Oh man!"
Yeah,
and we're thinking we might do one with him and Lee.
Oh gosh, yeah. They will. It's nonstop. Like me and Grant, it'd be nonstop. Yeah.
Which, by the way, already need a book. As soon as we're done here, we need to book a second episode.
Okay, that's good.
Because we need Greder back. And we'll get to that. So a couple questions of summer of '89. So you're selling in Tennessee. I always like to ask that first week or that first store experience, because I feel like we all have that, but it's always different. And every person's story is always so interesting of their first. Do you remember your first store?
Yeah, I do. I get nervous even thinking about it. There was so much about that morning. It was raining, so top that off, and I had this privilege of actually back in '89. The headquarters of Southwestern was in Franklin, Tennessee. It was further south. It's where the mall, the Cool Springs Mall, is at. That's where you got books. That's where all the headquarters and offices were at. Well, they had just sold all that, and that was everything was being moved to Landers Plaza, where the headquarters is at now. Well, I just happened to get assigned Franklin, Tennessee for my territory, and my roommate was Brentwood, and so we are in Williamson County. We had another roommate, and I can't remember where his territory was. I think we were supposed to share Franklin, but he quit after a couple weeks, and so I got dropped off. We had to go get our permits, and so I was in downtown Franklin, and he just basically dropped me off right there. We went and got our permits, and I went and started knocking right near Franklin Square. So I don't know if I could go to the exact house, but I remember it raining and going, they didn't train me on raining. Like, I didn't expect to be wet to my first door. Like, that's just not what I was ready for. And I just remember knocking on the first door. Nobody was home. I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Shoot. Okay. I can't get pre-approach. Shoot. This was easier when it was just knocking on a fist, And so I just started walking in the rain and going to the next door. And it took me a while. I remember the rain cleared a little bit and the sun came out, and I ended up sitting on a porch, and I did my first MUFU, and they actually considered buying it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll write you up. They said, well, we don't have our checkbook with us. And I'm like, I don't care. And I just kept on going. And I'm like, here's an order. And then I didn't even know what I was doing. I think in deliveries, I don't even think I didn't do that one right. It was a bad order, but so I took a weak order just to get the ball rolling. But that was a long day. It was if I went around a couple blocks, I was like screwing up my map. It got all wet, and I'm like, this isn't working. And then I kept on messing up on my map because I would get lost. And that brain that we just talked about, trying to keep everything organized. I was like, this really sucks. This is not fun. I'm not enjoying this. And I kept on getting mad at how many vacant houses were downtown, right? So I'm like, okay, there's nobody here. And I was kind of at that point where I was still wet. And I remember just getting really frustrated. And I saw this cat on a porch. And I'm like, you have more freedom than I do right now. Like, I have no options. Like, I've got to go to the next door. You can go wherever you want. And I was yelling at this cat, and I was so freaking mad, and I was angry and just like disturbed. I was really disturbed. And so I remember yelling at this cat, and then it went underneath the porch, and I couldn't see it anymore. And I just said, but I don't care. I'm going to figure this thing out. I'm just going to figure it out. I don't care. Get away from me, kind of deal. And just said, I don't care what the results are. I'm going to keep on moving. And so the rest of the day went okay. And I had this challenge, man. My first summer, I look back on it. It's even hard to describe because I don't remember it completely, but every night, because I was in Franklin, I had to find a ride home. Like, he was up in Brentwood, 20 miles north of me, and he wasn't going to come down and get me and take me back. Our headquarters was in Brentwood. So I had to find a ride 20 miles north every day. So my first job was to sell myself to somebody. At 9:30, can you take me somewhere north and drop me off at my house? Is that not just strange?
Can you imagine asking someone today that? Like,
no, I just still, like, I'm sitting there going, I really had to do that. That was the first task. If I didn't, and then, so like, if somebody would say no,
man.
I'm knocking on their door. Hey, nah, I'm Andrew. I'm doing something. I'm selling like the. Hey, no, we don't like you. Okay. Hey, later on about 9:30, would you guys, if your light was on, could I knock on your door? Would you take me? Like,
can you take me 20 miles away from here, 40-mile round trip?
Yeah. Who cares about the books? But at 9:30, will you be home? What the hell?
My God.
And so that was
funny.
not in the training book. And halfway through my summer, I knock on Greg Boucher. Think about thinking ahead. He's one of the vice presidents of SBR back in the day. He took me for like 3 weeks. If I could get to Greg's house, he'd drive me home. He did that for 3 weeks. So I ended up finding a few alumni, being that it was near the headquarters. I got lucky on a few of those. Had to hitchhike. I will tell you. One night, we had to go to the payphone. So you had to find a payphone. Sonics, outdoor payphones. Sonics and laundromats and a couple other places had some sort of like exterior payphones. So I had to dial this 800 number and then tell them where to pick me up if I needed a ride. Okay. And this one night he said he was going to come get me because he was selling further west. And I was like, okay, Jay was my roommate, Jay Dobson. And he goes, yeah, I'll meet you over here at the Sonic. And so it's 9:30, 9:45. He's not showing up. So I dial the stupid number and he's not answering. Nothing's working. Like, there's no message left for me. So I end up starting to hitchhike. And I hitchhike and I only go like 2 miles. And then I get the police, blue light special. And I get pulled over while I'm on the side of the road hitchhiking. And he's, the officer's like, where are you going again? And I go, well, I'm trying to get up to Brentwood. And sure enough, I got lucky. This cop actually, he's like, hey, I'm going up the highway a little bit. I'll take you up to the Franklin city limits. So I got all the way to the city limits. Then I had to get further, right? So then, lo and behold, when I get home, Jay's in bed. And I'm like, what the heck? Why are you in bed? Well, around dusk there, the sun was going down around 6 o'clock. He had been working with another manager, and he was running from the house to his car out in the country, and he hit a clothesline right at his mouth, a clothesline. And like a spindle, he went up in the ground, his feet went up, and he spun around on that clothesline on his mouth. And it took out like 4 teeth. And he fell to the ground.
Yikes.
And so he had all these teeth like eject out of his mouth.
Oh,
so he was in a hospital at like 7 o'clock. The guy he's working with takes him to the hospital. He has all this surgery done on his mouth and makes it back to the house, has no way to talk about what happened. He tells my host family, but I end up, that was a crazy night. Like, I don't think I got home until 11:30 or midnight. It took me that long to get all the way back to my headquarters. But is that not crazy?
Unbelievable. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's
so a couple of things that's crazy. We had Lee McCroskey and a couple other folks who sold in like the 70s, early 80s, and even Jim Potts sold in the 60s. And they would hitchhike to sales school.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
That was so normal to them. Like, oh yeah, how do I get to Nashville? Well, I don't know. Just find a fucking way. You're like, all right, so just get to Nashville, I guess.
Thumbs up.
And they had to hitchhike. Oh my gosh. You had to hitchhike home
Every day. The first sale was, how am I getting home? I had to find a ride. It was crazy.
I mean, if you could do that, then the 08 crash in real estate is nothing.
That's nothing. Yeah, that's
You're like, oh, the world economy collapse.
That's right. Got nothing on me. I can hitchhike anywhere. You know.
Wow, wild, man. That is so wild. And it's funny because you think back on it, you're like, what the heck was I doing? Like,
I know.
how did I do that? Like, you know what I mean?
You know, it's funny because I had a car from that point on, but the thing that they didn't prepare you for in sales school is rain. Because when you have wet shoes, wet socks, wet clothes, and you're just trying to get in a door, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you're dripping wet. You're just like, there's no change of clothes. You know, you got to wait till it gets dry. It doesn't make any sense at all. Like, as far as being presentable,
nothing.
There's no way to protect yourself from whatever's coming through. It's crazy. So
it's wild. There was those days.
I'm telling you.
And they would tell you, wear a rain jacket. You're like, no, you don't understand. It doesn't work. When you're 14 hours outside, it just honestly, the best thing you can do, so you could just get over it quickly, is just stand there for like just get out schedule for 5-10 minutes and just wait to just get soaked. So then you can be over it and then just go. You know what I mean?
Trying to jump under the next awning. Yeah.
Yeah. My second summer, I was with Jordan Ortmeyer. She was following me that day, and she was like really struggling because the rain, she couldn't handle the rain. And she's this beautiful girl, like from Minnesota, just super nice, really, really awesome. She was on the show, actually. She's been on the show. Just awesome chick. But she just struggled with the rain. And it's lo and behold, she got pulled behind me because we had a couple of days of rain. And she's like, we're going to have her follow you because you have fun on the book field. And so I was like, all right. So she's following me, and it's 3:00, and you could tell she's just like trying. You don't want the first year that's following you. You don't want them to be negative. You don't want them to even like talk, because you're so in the zone that you're like, don't bitch about anything. Like, I need you to just be with.
Yeah.
And you could tell I'm like, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. I just pulled. We're in the middle of nowhere. We stopped the car. I'm like, listen, we're gonna go outside and we're gonna go dance in the rain for 10 minutes and just have a blast. Get wet. Get soaked. There's puddles. We're gonna jump in every puddle we'll see. She's like, okay. So I put the bar. We're jumping in the puddles. We're doing crazy exacts, and I start blasting salsa through the car so you could hear it still on the outside. And I dance some salsa with her. I'm like, this is fun. We're just doing fun. We're just having fun in the rain. And then we get back in the car, and I'm like, okay, we can't get any wetter than this. So let's just keep having fun, but with Mrs. Jones.
Right.
And I that's a core memory, because you just later in life, when the rain hits, whether it's actual rain or shit that life deals you, you're just like, you know what? Just get it all over you. You can't get any worse than if it's everywhere. So just might as well dive in.
Yeah. There's a part of it that you get to acceptance because there's no other option. And I used to tell students, hey, rain is what makes things grow. So get out there and grow.
That good old country song, rain makes corn, corn makes whiskey.
There you go. I think that was before the book field, but that dynamic wasn't taught to me in sales school. Like, okay, yeah, it might rain. Bull, it rains in the summer. It's not like no drought summer that nobody gets all the way through. But anyway, so I found that to be the most challenging part of my summer is, sometimes, like, I heard Amy Rogers tell her book story on a bike, because she lived with me and my brother in Jackson, Mississippi, when we were selling there. So get this, all the territories I've sold, unless you want this now, is
sure, let's do it.
Franklin, Jackson, Mississippi.
Oh,
then near get this, summer of '91, Chalmette, Louisiana, New Orleans.
By the battery. Super. Oh,
Then
so
Houston. Then I go sell and part of Alex Bednar, if you know Alex Bednar in the organization, he broke the record after Dave Rosen. In the summer of '92, we were all in Houston with Nebraska. I think I sold with Nebraska people. And then Curtis Rogers and Jeff Boyd and I went to Illinois. I've been in right there. I have not repeated a territory. So of all those, I've not gone back to the same territory that some people end up doing. So then I go down to Louisiana the next summer, and then up to Seattle, and then I end up. I sold in Seattle. We went all the way down. Nobody got to Portland, but we went down past Olympia. I sold some books in Olympia, and
beautiful. It's so pretty up there.
It's a great place to sell. And I sold in the summer of '95. In the middle of '95, when Jay Leno flies in on a helicopter to release Windows 95 in Seattle, and I had to sell up against that. Like nobody was home. Like that was a big deal in Seattle. Like seriously. Yeah. And then ended up in northeast Texas near Tyler, Texas is kind of where I sold my last summer. So
how wild.
But so there wasn't a lot of repeats. You were strictly Northeast. Most of Grant's was New York, Connecticut,
Pennsylvania. Yeah. I mean, I guess I never repeated. Well, I guess I repeated states a couple times, but yeah, it was primarily that. And it's all the same there. I mean, yeah. You know, Massachusetts. I shouldn't say that. That's not true. It's all the same from the standpoint of the aesthetic. It all looks the same. Vermont is the clear outlier. And then, of course, New York. Like Vermont, New York are some of them. And I've been to now 47 states, I think now. New York and Vermont are beautiful places to sell books.
And you sold near Syracuse in New York?
Yeah, it was kind of close. My first summer I was in Hornell, New York, which was just near Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse area, like the
still
more western.
North, like right on the US border.
Actually, no, I was further south. So some of our org was up in Buffalo, but I was like I even had a couple Pennsylvania customers.
Oh, you were further south. Okay.
I went down.
You were Pennsylvania.
Then I went to Massachusetts. Massachusetts is a unique location on the planet.
Is that right?
It's so weird. They have like a variety of so the closer you get to Boston, or at least where I got closer to Boston. So some of the people I was selling to were just stupid rich. Like I sold neighborhoods where it was like the average house was like $2.5 million in 2013, which is saying a lot because the market's just changed. I mean, those houses have to be 5-6
Don't those
million
have
now,
gates? Like most of those houses have gates.
They would sometimes, but you just have to like, hey, I'm the book guy. Like just and what happened was, and I've told this story before, but long story short, there was a high school in Andover called Phillips Exeter. It's like the #1 high school or one of the top high schools in the U.S. Like the Kennedys went to school there.
Okay.
Like, the Chinese emperor sends his daughter there, whatever kind of shit. Wow. And they had $50,000 a year to take a kid to school there. 75% of the graduate. Mm-hmm. Yeah, high school. It's a high school. It's a prep school. And then 75% of the graduating senior class goes to Harvard is the acceptance rate from that. Yeah, it's just nuts.
It's the money, right?
It's where, I mean, the worst rejection I ever got was from that town, but from that area.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of yeses. Yep.
Yeah, but I got a yes from the math teacher of the school. She bought 2 sets, one for home, one for the classroom. And after that, it was Dr. Lisa. I can't remember her last name now. I just called her Lisa. She's like, don't call me doctor, just call me Lisa. I'm like, all right. And she bought, and it was over. I mean, it was like I hit PC. It was like, this is Dr. Lisa bought. Everyone knew her, Dr. Lisa. So it was like, oh, well, what did she buy? She bought the whole set. Okay, cool. Like, if I was able to get in, right? But once I got in, it was
the accent came out just a second ago. I heard the accent. Oh, she bought. I just heard you say.
Yeah, what she buy? Well, what did she get? And you buy your cat?
That is so funny. Whenever I would sell, for so long, you heard my track record. Almost everything I sold was in the South, and for some reason, when I sell books, I will get this little accent, and I would start talking with the accent every time I would go, and whatever I do. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. And so like when I'd come back to K-State, people are like, "Who are you? Like, you're weird. Like, why are you talking that way?"
I'm going back to school.
Yeah, that's right. Like, what? And so in Seattle, that didn't work. Like, some of my twang wasn't working in the way that I would want it to work. So Illinois, and I couldn't do it in Illinois and Seattle. It just wasn't the same thing.
How odd.
But yeah.
What was your favorite place to sell? If you had to pick one place, you're like, wow, I would do that again.
Oh boy, I probably had the most relaxing and not stressful was Seattle because of the heat.
Nice.
It just
I
was selling right at the base of Mount Rainier. I was in Enumclaw, Covington. I was in the country, like that was my territory outside of Auburn. And
honestly, Rainier is so big, you could see it from so far away. So I can't imagine if you're at the base, it just that you just would knock on a door and look.
Yeah, I was right before Rainier Park. So I sold right up against the boundary of the park. So you couldn't sell any closer than I did.
That's so pretty.
I mean, I met some great families there. See, I really like Louisiana though. I still stay in touch with some families in Chalmette. After Katrina, I invited them up here to my home, and these are just customers that I knocked on their door. They and that might be a story for later in the show, but I'll tell those for a ponytail. Yeah. So
cool. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine so people have a hard time understanding how beautiful the summers are here because in Portland or just Pacific Northwest in general, but this morning I went to the gym and I had a sweatshirt on, not because I needed it, but it was just the right weather where it's that sweatshirt weather. The sun was out. The sun is out now, but it's just, and then as the day gets on, it gets the warmest actually in the afternoon. So right now is actually the warmest it'll be all day, and it'll stay warm well past dusk. And so it's so nice in the summer. And people it rains a lot. I mean, you're gonna sprinkle here or there, but it's not like it rains every day all day. It'll rain once a day, which by definition it means it rains a lot, but really the summers here are so the mountains
I would say
and the moss.
I think it was that because in the South, selling in Houston, Louisiana, both near New Orleans, it's just so musky, and your shirt sticks to your body, and then it's hard to stay professional. And I felt the most professional in Seattle, and I think that summer with Curtis Rogers when we were OLs together in Champaign-Urbana, I sold in Champaign-Urbana near University of Illinois. That was another good. Again, I think that helped because I had that heat so many summers that helped me not feel so. Wow, it's impossible, So you had the Northeast. I think Grant.
It's nice there too.
It flurried one morning. I'm like on the bookfield. That just doesn't happen. I'm like.
Week 1, summer number 4 for me. I did 4 summers. 4th summer was in Vermont. Week 1, day 1 and 2. We woke up and we looked outside and there was snow on our cars. Not enough that it was inches or anything, but kind of snow where snow. You would drive and then it would fly away as you drove, but definitely snow. You were oh, it snowed. And so and didn't have to try to do cold showers because they kind of have the plumbing set for that, but it's not like in Nebraska or the Midwest where it's we're ready for cold. It's if it gets cold, you just kind of have to deal with it, and it sucks. Even the warm shower isn't even warm. You have no choice. It's gonna be cold. And if you turn it all the way cold, they're but yeah, it snows up there, and it's nice summers up there too.
I agree. Yeah, and there's a different experience when you're not having to deal with that as an obstacle, right? Whether it's just the overwhelming exhaustion from the heat, or get this, I would pack a salad and try and keep it in a cooler. My cooler would be melted by lunchtime, so because of how hot it got in the car, right? So you're this ain't even fair. That's not right.
What is this? No,
what country am I in? Yeah, what?
So. Okay, question about 89, and then we can move on into some of your other summers and stuff that memorable highlights. But that's the summer everybody knows, right? That's the summer of Zizzy and Rosen. And as a first year, what do you remember about like watching these giants? Because I remember, I'm assuming I guess I don't know how that summer went for you, but like it had to be kind of interesting to know that you're like, wow, that's what's possible. And at the time they're breaking the record. What was that like for
Yeah.
you?
I to be honest, I was just surviving. I I just didn't want to quit. I knew that if I quit, that I'd already been delayed on any other work. I wouldn't be able to. It was all about the money. So I was just like, I'm just got to put my head down and work. Um, you know, I was progressive. If you look at my summer too, I sucked week one. I did less than sucky the second week, and then I did a little bit better than sucky on the third week. And by the fourth week, I was starting to develop some habits. And again, with no car, it was hard. Like, it was just very difficult. I felt against the grain. The only thing I had going for me, which was special, is that I would run into an alumni from now and then, because I'm knocking on doors right by the headquarters. So there'd be like a little bit of encouragement, or just a little bit like, okay, this isn't, gut it out, it'll be worth it, kind of deal. And that, no one else had that privilege. I think I was the only person that sold by the campus like that, to endure a summer. I mean, towards the end of the summer, I mean, I'm knocking on Craig Soder's door, and I met his daughter, his wife. They bought it's called a Magical Tales. You guys never sold them. We only sold them like 1 or 2 summers. It's called Magical Tales or something like that. I don't remember much about it. And it was the only book they never owned, right? So they bought it from me. But I knocked on Jerry Huffle's door. Now, he was the president when I was in. So that was, I just randomly was in his territory, that part of where I was knocking. I ended up getting busted once because I knock on this lady's door who'd been helping me kind of get a ride at night, that knew my sales manager and Lee. So Lee McCroskey and Roy was under the other way around. Lee was under Roy McCroskey.
Roy Lofton.
Lee McCroskey was underneath Roy Lofton's group. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know Roy that well, but he did help us in some of the training. And this one lady was so helpful. I would always go back to her house because it would be a thing where I could get some help. And I knock on this door, and I think it's a Saturday. It must have been. And she's like, "Yeah, come on in." And I'm like, "Okay, cool, thanks." And I'm, just trying to get help. I don't know exactly what for, like territorial or pre-approach. And she's like, come on in. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't really need to spend a lot of time here. And she opens up the sliding door to her back patio, and there is sitting Roy and Lee McCroskey at a barbecue. And I'm like, no, I'm not supposed to bump into you guys. Like, this isn't right. Like, how many people bump into their sales manager as they're knocking on doors, and it looks like I'm off schedule because I'm getting some help from a neighborhood friend, and oh gosh. And so they're like, get out, go to the next door. And I'm like, oh gosh. So that doesn't happen very often in people's first summers. And
that is unique.
Yeah. I was really, and it was interesting because I think I was so naive, but it was really helpful to meet some of these sales managers. John Liederbach was kind of a big name at the time. And his family, it was just neat to see where they live, their lifestyle, and that that was a testament to something. Okay, that wasn't fabricated or made up or fake, and it wasn't a testimony. It was just like, oh wait, these are real people that are training people that are selling books. They're sales managers. And so I think I had that privilege, which was kind of special for summer.
That's sweet.
So I really didn't. I wasn't super competitive on that kind of stuff of watching pace setters. In fact, it was intimidating to look at pace setters because I didn't feel like it was a possibility to even have those numbers. And as I progressed, so every week I got better. Like, I would sell a little bit better than the week before. And as it got towards the end of the summer, and some other people that had started off, like selling really a lot of books early. Okay. I was starting to pick up with their sale volume. Like I was starting to pass a lot of people as the summer went along. And I think my last 3 weeks, I sold more every week on top of every week. So I hit I Want to Win twice. And I ended
Let's
up like
go.
really favoring I Want to Win because I'm like, wait, that's where I made all my money. I made almost all my money in the last 3 weeks. And so
That's you were like the classic ideal first year.
right,
Like you were the
right,
canvassing chart that they showed every
yeah,
first year the next year.
right,
Like
right, yeah.
this is how Andrew did.
It was more out of desperation than it was willingness. I mean, I think it was just I needed to pay for school. I didn't have any other money. But at that point I was starting to get the rhythm of what's next. Like, okay, I started getting the rhythm of, hey, this is just a process. Go, 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 get a couple sales and you'll chime in. And so that, and I was also in Brentwood. So I had exhausted Franklin, and I was heading into parts of Brentwood because my roommate was already delivering. So he couldn't drop me off every morning. So, and that there was a little bit more money and I could cash them out too. I still was on my bike, but I was able to sell bigger sets. And so I was a big I Want to Win trainer and manager too, because I wanted people to try to accomplish that or think outside the box. I ended up, I'm not 100% sure I was number one or really close to number one in our organization that summer because of that finish. So
That is so cool. Like that is such a cool. Not many people that we've had on the show had that where it like they finished. I mean, we've had some, but that's usually not the norm. There's something a lot to say about a person that can have that mentality that to close and finish strong. I never want to win, and it's such a cool thing to be able to do. I think it just speaks
The
a lot
number
to
one
your.
rookie was out of Nebraska that summer. So her name was Natalie. She was responsible for recruiting Curtis. And then Curtis was
Recruited
also
Grant.
responsible for Curtis, So Natalie was number one at the summer of '89, and she was this tall, good-looking blonde, like just like volleyball player, whatever. Nebraska, and
Win.
Amazons, where the Amazons are made, and she was she it was quite intimidating to be around her, but during training Nebraska came through differently than K-State did, so we weren't in training sales school with them, so I never really met a lot of the Nebraska people until we went into student manager, and then most of my friends were part of Roy's organization up there, and Nebraska was in the top, I think the top 5 almost all of my Southwestern career.
Yeah.
They were in the top, and part of that's really from Natalie, because Linda Berry, does that ring a bell to you?
Yeah, I've heard of Linda as well.
She's now Linda Smith. She was the catalyst to the big explosion of Nebraska. Well, today I still do business with Linda. So Linda, she, my ex-wife and her started a company. She lives here in Kansas City, and that was a great venture. And then she ends up joining this company where I do all my drone videos. So she and I, whenever I do a property, I call Linda. So it's
we
kind
gotta
of
get
cool.
Linda on the show. That's what we gotta
Linda,
do.
I'm telling you, Linda's probably, she has her fingertips on almost anything amazing in the Midwest that's happened. She was the cat. I think 3 20-person teams back to back to back, and just a high quality person. I mean, really high quality, and a great recruiter. Her husband sold, and so there's a nucleus of book couples here in Kansas City, like John and Gina Ogren. That may not ring a bell to you, but Johnny O was his name. Good friends with Eric Dunlop. In fact, he just went to Nashville to go see Eric Dunlop play in a band this weekend. And I have breakfast with Johnny O every other week, and his son and my sons all went to the same high school. We're all in the same vicinity. I've sold him a house and moved them a couple times. So that's kind of the cool part of Kansas City is we've got a lot of people from Nebraska here. Gina was a UNF grad. Mm-hmm.
We need to have like a beer tasting either in Omaha or in Kansas City where like all y'all can come up, kind of like meet up there and
I mean, anytime there's
gives me an excuse to go to the Midwest and see my family.
Yeah. Another campus that was really big when I was in school was Nebraska Wesleyan. So there was a nucleus of girls there that were just really solid saleswomen, and they all did so great. Sharon Lundquist, who's now Sharon Mitchell, her husband went to K-State with me, and so yeah, a lot of book couples here in Kansas City.
So cool. Yeah. Hey, if we do a party in Omaha or in Lincoln, you got to bring out the folks. You can come out and we'll do Grant. Yeah, that'd be fun. We have to do that. Obviously, because Nick Taverdi, he handles jockey stuff. He is from Nebraska, and obviously I got ties down there as well. So we have to do we're gonna have to do one.
Is Nick in Omaha or is he in Lincoln?
Nick is in Gainesville. He is originally from Omaha, but he's in Gainesville right now. But his family, his roots, Florida.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Miami. Or not Miami.
You know a guy named Joel Cush?
Oh, do I know Joel Cush? Do I know Joel Cush?
Joel, I helped Joel get a house. I think that was a referral from Pat Roach.
Oh yeah, they're down there.
They're about 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh well, are they still in Kansas City? Or did they move back to Omaha?
He moved since then, but he moved in the north part of Kansas City, so I'm in the southern part.
Yeah, I love Joel and Jess. They're awesome. Good. His house was right next to the airport. Right. I would go down there and park there.
Yeah.
So I could then take an Uber, so I don't have to pay parking because it's cheaper to just take an Uber. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Dude, Joel is talk about the solid human being of a person. Like it's such a nice guy. He's the youngest of like 9, has 30 nieces and nephews. Just a nice dude.
Similar, man. It's crazy.
Such a nice guy. I love Joel.
Good kid.
Joel Cush, I hope you're listening. Love you lots, buddy.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, this is so fun, Andrew. Okay. I have a couple more questions. I don't know how much time you have, but I have questions for you. Okay, so we have to talk about meeting Grant Greder because Grant is such a legend to the Southwestern community. I feel like Grant spent 25 years of his life devoted into this whole thing, right? And I knew him once he was. I mean, I don't know if he's always been the same, but I knew him once he was already the DSL, like this legend, right? But what was he like when you first met him? What was it like meeting Grant Greder? And can you talk a little bit about maybe not even specifically to Grant, but like the friendships that you can still hold on to, despite not being in Southwestern anymore, but like how you still kind of keep in touch with those people and how special those connections are.
Yeah, I cherish almost anybody that I ran organizations with, just as a high caliber person, and so I have a lot of genuine respect for everybody that swung the bookcase, that I've kept in touch with. My first meeting with Grant was unique. So I was in an organization selling in Louisiana. So we were selling, and I was so slow, man. I was like a turtle. I just did not go out of the gate selling a lot of books. I wasn't super special at being a salesman right out of the gates. I was very unassertive, low confidence kind of guy. Okay. And so as I started getting better, it was that summer of 91 that I was starting to figure it out. And so I had just hit PC, maybe week 6 or 7, okay, and I'm in New Orleans, and we're going to have 2 orgs meet. So Linda Smith today is running an organization in the eastern part of Texas. So Houston, Beaumont, Texas, Corpus Christi, all the way up through College Station, all the way to the border of Louisiana. And so our orgs are going to meet over in Cleveland, Texas, I think is what it was called. And my commute was 4.5 hours. Like I had to leave New Orleans and get there for a Sunday meeting. So for Saturday night. So that means I had to hit PC by 6 o'clock. So that's hard to do when I needed those 3 hours to get a few more sales in.
And for people who might not understand, like Saturday is when your bread and butter is. Like all week, you've almost kind of been working because people aren't home. So you're still kind of getting information about where to hit. But Saturday is when you kind of go and clean up. And so it's those 3 hours might not seem like a lot out of, I don't know, 80 hours a week, but those are really crucial hours of your week. So just sorry to explain.
I'm trying to cut my Saturday off early, and my roommates are waiting for me. And because they already are off schedule, so they cleaned up whenever they wanted to at noon, let's call it. But anyway, so I hit PC like at 7 o'clock, and I'm like, I just need 511. Okay, numbers. How do I remember that stupid number? So 511, 500 was President's Club when I was in the biz, and it's my first PC, my third summer, and so I'm so excited. I'm just like pumped, and I'm heading out of my territory. So I'm on the farthest southern eastern part of Louisiana, and I've got to get to the western border for this engagement. Well, that I can't remember how many customers I had, but that week Grant had 66 customers. Okay, and most of them were half, like let's say half down, so they were weak. Well, he was a newbie. He was a rookie, right? And so we're doing recognition, and we're at this lake in Cleveland, Texas. And I'm still up, as a manager, and he's still up as a rookie. And we're both the last two standing in the water, getting recognized. So that's how we first were kind of on the same page near each other. And I'm throwing kids in the water and just kind of goofing around and strangers, and Grant thought that was really quite aggressive. And anyway, but he was fascinating in how I love how Star Wars is so important to him, because it's just the Force. Like he has this mentality that was, well, I just do it because that's who I am. Like I just do this many customers. I just took the orders because people said yes. Like it's almost like black and white to a certain degree. But he was very, in my opinion, he was just like focused. I'm going to go do what you just told me to do because I know it's good for me, and I'm just going to go do it. And so I didn't necessarily know him, or we didn't get to know each other more than that. But it wasn't until the summer of '93, so that was summer of '91. So then we meet each other and kind of spend a little bit more time in recruiting, great recruiters and other events, because we're with Roy Lofton, we were all in the same follow up.
You guys were doing get backs everywhere. Yeah.
All the get backs. Right. And so Curtis and I were good friends, and Jeff Boyd. They recruited on the KU campus in the spring of '93. So Curtis and Jeff Boyd and I ran an organization in Illinois. So everything that Curtis was a part of, Grant would be a part of at some point. But that summer, Curtis and Grant went a different way. So Grant went to the Northeast, and we went to Illinois. And that's how Grant and I kind of got started. So when at the middle of that summer, people are like, what are you doing after, I had graduated K-State in May. And so people were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I have nothing to do, so I'll go on a trip. Well, Grant had nothing to do, and there was a couple others in Roy's organization, and Australia was the talk at the time to get there. Now, I'll tell you what, I'll talk about that later if you want me to, but about our trip to Australia. But let me know if now's the time. So,
I mean, ponytails comes. Is it a ponytail? Is it one of like a?
It's just a trip, so I don't know if it's a ponytail or not. It's a
sure. You can tell it now if you want to. That's fine.
So anyway,
ponytails are like your best ones for like the juicy ones.
So part of Grant is fascinating because Grant really adopted the idea that, hey, if I spend no money, then I make more money. Okay, so Grant's
He
like
still is that way.
I mean, yeah, he's still that way. But when we were going on this trip, he was in charge of buying tickets, and so this is before the internet. This is before methodology. You just had to call an 800 number to get tickets. And for some reason, him and a couple other buddies that had sold books before had said, "Hey, listen, you can buy cargo tickets and fly as cargo for like $500 to Australia." and we're like, "What? Holy cow, we can just sit in the bottom of a plane and go as cargo and we'll get to Australia round trip?" Somehow Grant was on this thing. I mean, he had researched it, he had figured it out, and I guess we sit next to boxes. I don't get it. Like, we have parachutes on. I don't even know what this is going to be. But
before 9/11,
he was dead set on this is going to be. I think it was even $500, like $200. And well, we were just trusting him. I'm like, "All right, Grant, whatever. You buy the tickets, and we're going." Okay. So as we're preparing for that summer, we left in October. So to get those tickets was the month of September. And I think both of us had really good summers. So anyway, but I thought that was fascinating. He ended up going, it's not very practical, and we ended up doing American Airlines or something like that at the last minute round trip to Australia. But that was Grant's attempt to save a lot of money. I'll tell you about the trip to Europe when he bought the tickets on. He tried to do the same thing with the cargo thing, and that wasn't cutting it. This was in the this was in '95, so this is after my Seattle summer, and he tried the cargo thing again, and it wasn't cutting it. So we're going to Europe with Emily Drews in Nebraska, Rob Downey, Nebraska, and Grant and I, and we were going to rent a car and go through Europe. Well, he tried it again, and the cargo thing wasn't cutting it, and so he ends up getting the next best thing, which is Royal Jordanian Airlines. Yeah, believe it or not, it exists. I don't know how else, but that's the cheapest flights to Amsterdam from Chicago. And lo and behold, on the way back from Amsterdam, on our way back to the States, we get a bomb threat. So Grant, me, Rob Downey, and Emily Drews land in Reykjavik, Iceland, because the plane needs to be vacated in case there's a bomb on it. We had no idea what was going on, and so we spent 17 hours in Iceland just because of Grant picking Royal Jordanian Airlines. Like, seriously, Grant, like, come on. We need to work on your
Spend $1. Spend $1. The dude will wipe his butt with confetti if it was because it's cheaper. That's how cheap.
Knows how to do it. I mean, he's really good at it. Let's just put it that way.
It's actually amazing. It's an art form of being able to understand like how cheap. It's not cheap for the cheaps. I mean, honestly, he's doing so well right now that you can't blame him.
Well, and it's worked for him. Like in that setup, Southwestern worked for that mentality of, hey, that you follow that line and you're going to have some savings at the end of it. I mean, you're going to have a nest egg, and not very many people could do that. I'm just telling you, not very many people could do it for that long. So anyway, I thought I'd share that with you.
I think it's such a funny testament to how Grant is, because it's just the ridiculousness of who he is. Like he's such a fun person. I feel lucky to not only know Grant, but really just to have spent so much time, with Grant, and I know he's really close with my brother and his wife, and he's, my brother and his wife have learned so much from him as a mentor, and yeah, huge to Grant Greder.
Greder. That's right, Grant.
To Grant Greder, sir. Last question, and then we can go into ponytails, unless you have more stories, but it's up to you.
That's just Grant stories. Yeah.
Was there ever a time, I wanted to ask you this because you had a rough start to your summer. Was there ever a time where you thought about going home? That you almost were like, I can't do this, I'm done, and then you stuck around, or were you like solid all the way through? Like, do you have like a dirt pile story, like a Lee McCroskey, like, oh, I almost quit, but then I didn't type of story?
I think it was screaming at the cat. I mean, that was like talking to a cat. I mean, like, that was desperate. That was desperate, and maybe going a little crazy. No, I really didn't. I didn't follow the thought all the way through. I still had anxiety though, like a great amount of fear of not being able to fit all those pieces together. So if I did quit, I'd have to find a ride home. If I found a ride home, what would I do when I arrived back home? I'd have to explain myself. I didn't have a car. Where would I go? Where would I be? You know, so there's a lot of things there. Would I go back to my college town? Would I go back to mom and dad's house? So to me, I didn't roll the tape out far enough to act on it. But yeah, I did not want to be there, and I did not want to do a lot of the things. But I didn't roll the tape out enough in my brain to follow through on anything.
Wow.
And I was just scared. I just went to work because I was scared. I didn't know how to pay for school.
That's such a motivator, right? But have you found that even having that mentality of like not giving up on things, where else in your life do you feel like that's really impacted you? Or where has it come in the most handy? That lesson of like, hey, no matter how hard it seems to get, I'm not quitting on this. I guess, what can you share about that?
I think some of that has worked against me, to be honest. I think I've
Oh,
stayed along in things that I should have gotten out of a lot sooner because of the endurance that the Southwestern system has put me into. And some of that could be in bad relationships or in a bad business deal, you know, just trying to grit my teeth through it. I like that mentality, but I do think that there is a gain and a loss part of it. I think there was a part of my experience in consulting when I did that too long. Like that, I wasn't making money. The clients are far and few between. But I was just like, I'll keep my head down and keep on working and go on to the next client, keep on trying to get another client. And when I looked into real estate, I was like, wait, I'm working my tail off over here. Why not, why not pick up what's the torch that's been laid down in real estate and take over? So I think,
that's
I think the discernment is really hard. Like I think it's worked against me more than it's been to my favor. And that's just my personality, I think.
That's super interesting. So is there any wisdom that you would like, now that you're here, it's 2022, you've gone through the things you've gone through, in your professional life, in real estate, you've gone through the '08 crash, right? You mentioned a divorce, you mentioned, failing another business. And listen, by the way, divorce is marriage is so hard. Like my parents, we moved countries, learned languages, changed cultures. My parents are divorced. I'm the child of a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
It was easier to move to another country, learn a language, become a citizen
Mm.
than it was to maintain that. Like that's how hard marriage is, right?
Yeah. Hard.
What would you like, I guess, through that, then based on that experience where you're like, okay, I learned how to stick through something that's hard, and then now I learned that I sometimes stick through things too much that it's actually a detriment. How is there any wisdom that you could share as far as like how to about that discernment, about like when is it a good time to say, you know what, this is quitting, and when versus this is healthy to stop doing this? Like
Yeah.
what's
Right.
the line, I guess, in your
Well, and some
experience?
of that goes into bad habits, right? Like how do I like
Oh,
I think there's a part of Southwestern was it takes 21 days to form a good habit, right? And that to me was like, hey, I'll grit my teeth for 21 days. I can do that. And that mentality is a good mentality, I think, because hey, I can form that habit again. I can get back on track. I just got my blood work back. My doctor does a health assessment every year, and my cholesterol is a lot higher. And I got angry at myself, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting back into the fitness part. I'm going to do this, this, and this, and back off on whatever and food and watch over all these things. So, but I will tell you a story that when I went to do that internship in Nashville this was the winter of '93, and I didn't know if I was going to come back and sell again. So 93 was again I just gotten back from Australia, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to stay or go, or I don't know if I want to go in the real world. And Dan Moore and Lee McCroskey had created this little position at the headquarters to do again, a made up internship. They just created it so that I wouldn't go do something else. So they gave me this little thing, but my degree was computer engineering. So they knew that I knew enough about how computers operated, how the internet wasn't even available. So everything was PC based, and maps were just starting to become on disks, and they were getting some of that data to be able to capture like a map digitally. And so when they created that role, I was like, hey, this is good. I can live in Nashville. And I got lucky because Alex Bednar had gone on to recruit. He had moved on to another. I can't remember what he was doing, but he was not in his apartment. And his roommate. So basically, there was a vacant spot in Nashville where his roommate was working for SBR. And that relationship with his roommate has changed my life. So when I lived, Sean Lewis is, have you heard that name?
No,
Sean
I don't know
Lewis.
that. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I've heard so many names at this point that some of them
So
stick with and some don't.
Sean was out of the Bowling Green organization. I can't remember the name. Craig Buffkin, Craig Soder, all that, where that whole organization was part of. And Sean was instrumental in a big team. He married Sandy Matthews, which she's now Sandy Lewis, and they live in Nashville. And so in that relationship, now that I'm in this apartment of a stranger, of a Southwestern guy I've never met before, it formed one of the best relationships I've had in the book business. And Sean has pretty much transformed my life on the way I see people, my Christian walk. And so when I was going through the hard times in divorce, I formed a really good relationship with Sean. And in that, Sean and I just talked through it, and he shared a little bit of where his struggles were and his relationships, and that in the end of it, that's what we're known for, is how we treat the relationships of the people that are closest to us in this planet, right? And that's really our walk. And part of that, he shared an organization in Nashville that deals with the psychology of it all. And so I'm like, hey, I'm going. I don't care, if you've gone through it, I'll go through it. And so that, to me, diving in on the psychological part of our makeups and how did I get myself where I was at, and it helped me kind of see. It helped me kind of see who I am. It's based on a book called Voice of the Heart, which is really good. Is where is my heart in relation to how am I as a person, and identifying what my heart's really saying when it's saying it, and through that, having this common language with Sean was it was a great step in where crumbling a relationship on one side, but going to a focal point of a relationship that I could cherish. Who Sean walked me through my faith and where I ended up in a lot of ways, trying to decide the next path of my life at age 24 in that apartment in Nashville. That was and then I ended up saying, hey, I'm going to recruit again. And I recruited at University of Iowa, and then, and took an organization to Louisiana that summer. But I would say that part of that was, that common bond between two book people. And Sean and I have similar personalities, but I had a genuine respect for who he was. He had a genuine respect for who I was, but he could see my weaknesses, but yet wasn't just pointing them all out. And he had enough charisma to walk me through that. And so when I'm going through a hard time back in my marriage, I reach out to Sean, and he steps in, and like Old Faithful. And so it was a big deal. That was a big deal in my walk. And so that psychologically has affected how I even see sales. Like the way that I see my own heart and how I connect with people is changed the way that I even see the way I even operate in my organization and selling real estate is engaging with their heart first. It's a big deal. Big jump. Drop the mic. So,
Jeez.
yeah. If you haven't
Wait,
heard
you're
that
like-
book, it's a great Voice of the Heart. Chip Dodd, Dr. Chip Dodd. It's amazing. He's there. He's got an organization there in Nashville, and it was a big change in my walk, in a lot of ways. The way I parent my kids, how I see commitment, like you're talking about, dedication, perseverance. It all starts with where was my heart in that, and that's how you dive through it. It's pretty good.
Brilliant.
It's good stuff.
Woo-wee. That is some good. That is some good territory. That is some good nuggets of wisdom right there.
Yeah,
So this is what I love about doing this experience is I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the conversation because I get to learn so much from different people doing so many cool things. And so I thank you for sharing that. That was
thanks, man.
That's some good stuff.
Yeah, very good.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Now, okay. Now it might be time to switch into some ponytails. This might be a good spot. Is that okay? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Or do you have some more like highlights from 8 summers that went? Okay.
That's good.
Let me do a quick shout out again to some of our friends over. You can stay on for this one, or you can go. Do you need to use the restroom again or anything like that?
I'm just liquefying.
Pounding water. I'm over here pounding Topo Chico hard seltzers. I wish
hard margarita. So where's your beer? Wait, you don't have the beer
okay. Yet? Here's the thing. Normally I drink beer. Sometimes I drink tequila or like some hard liquor. It just kind of depends on the situation. But I went with these today.
Like the brand. Where's the brand?
Oh, we're still working. So they're getting it out to me. It's shipped. The beer industry is, man, there's some laws that have been around literally for 100 years from like the pre-prohibition era, where it's like even shipping beer across the country is really, really difficult legally to do. And so we're here because of the nature of what we do. We don't want to leave any loose ends.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So what are you gonna call it? Pony ears? What's the name of the beer?
So ponytails. I don't know. It's the Ponytails Brew. So I'm glad you asked. If someone's listening and they're curious about this is actually a really good opportunity from a standpoint of joining our Jog team. Because if you want to put your name of your company and or brand onto our beer, you're more than welcome to. So it'll be the Ponytails beer in general. But like if you want to own the IPA, so it could be called like the XYZ company IPA.
Real Nice Homes IPA.
Real Nice Homes IPA. Or something like that. There is opportunity out there to join into that into that realm.
Really? That's
yeah. Isn't it fun? Now here's the thing.
I mean, I've never thought about my brand on a bottle. That's kind of cool.
Now we'd have to ask Pat because conflict of interest.
Oh no, not my brand. I'm just saying a brand. Yeah.
A brand. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Now, on the other hand, I will say this too. Michelle Mitchell was on the show back in May. And Michelle Mitchell's good friends with Roger Sipe. If you know Roger, you probably have met Michelle, but she's out in Bend, Oregon. And she started this company called Hum Kombucha. So kombucha is a drink that they have here up in New England. And now it's this giant corporation. And then they're like in multiple states and stuff. But anyway, they're coming out with a new one called Unicorn Kombucha. And we're the Ponytails podcast. Unicorn Kombucha. Pony, right? Like, I was like, Michelle, I think it's wrong if we don't somehow find a way to make it that we drink your kombucha on the air. So that's also kind of in the works. And she's going to be helping us with, I shouldn't speak too much for her, but we've been in talks with her to kind of help us, or she's going to at least point us in the right direction, I should say, at the very least, if not more. She wants to help us out, but she's such a great human being. To kind of help us get the distribution set up, because the biggest issue is like the licensing. When you go into the alcohol world, especially beer brewing, you got to get licensed both federally and statewide, and then to even sell it or distribute, you got to get. So there's a lot of red tape, and she's navigated that world. And so I haven't been able yet to openly drink our own beer here because I'm in Oregon and it's being brewed in Florida. But we're figuring it out. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm drinking this hard seltzer for now, which is working But I needed to watch my calories because we're going to Bisler, which, by the way, please come to Bisler.
Oh, yeah. Where's it at this time?
Cancun. It's our first ever Cancun.
What resort?
It's going to be like Valentine Imperial. It's like a really nicer high-end one.
Nice. Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah. Feel free. Please come.
Imperial Maya. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We're hoping to have anywhere between, even if we only have like 20, 25 people, but if we have 100 people, like I don't really know what to expect to have. It's the first one, so I don't know. I can't say. But as many people as we have, even if it's a little bit or if it's a lot, honestly, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm excited.
Where was your first?
Be a cool time.
Where was your first?
My first Sizzler was in, where was I? Cabo St. Lucas.
Okay.
Good times. Okay. Rocky Beach wasn't the best beach, but it was a great resort. The Rio Palace.
What year was that?
2012.
2012. Okay.
10 years ago.
My first
10 years ago, I was in some
was Acapulco. That was my first one in '89. That was Acapulco.
Dang, what's your favorite Sizzler you've been to?
Gosh, they're all good. Puerto Vallarta was special because they had just filmed Predator there.
Yes.
And so that we got a lot of attention. But I've always liked everywhere Southwestern sent us. It was a treat. I mean, Cancun, I almost got arrested in almost every single Sizzler. So they all have their own different memories on how I evaded the police. That's the policia.
I feel like you got to give me at least one ponytail after we almost got arrested. Your favorite one. All right, let me give a quick shout out, and then we're going to jump into these ponytails because Sizzler stories are the best. By the way, if you want to stick around for some of these, one shout out that we got to give out to is if you, I don't know if Nicely Homes or if you guys have a real nice homes, that's what you would call it, real nice homes. If you guys don't have, how's your website game as an entrepreneur in 2022? What have you learned about the importance of a website?
Oh yeah, I mean it's more important than a business card because it's there. I mean, people are going to find it. They're going to look you up. They're going to do some research.
That's exactly right. So anybody out there listening, by the way, this could be you, Andrew, or anybody out there as an entrepreneur. We had ours done and designed by VDisain, and these guys were in Estonia. So instead of paying like 25 grand to have all these integrations, mailing lists, all these cool things that happen, not just like a landing page, but like legit things that needed to happen. We got these guys on board. They're awesome. Our store is available right now. If you guys are listening to this at this point, it's called theponytailspodcast.com. You can go buy our merch. We got hoodies, t-shirts, a bunch of different stuff. You can get hats, baby gear. If you don't see it in there, become a fan. Paid fans get exclusive merch. What that means is, like, let's say you come up to me and go, hey, I want a dog tag that says Ponytails Podcast or something very specific. We'll get it for you just because you're a paid fan. So go to our store, check it out. And if you need a website that's designed like that with solid integrations, mailing lists, collecting information, like really good traffic, SEO kind of stuff, this is where you guys want to go. They're Estonian, so you're paying a fraction of the price, but for a fantastic website. We're happy with what we got. They're beautiful as far as the designs go, and they're really easy to work with. So get a hold of us. VDisain is the place. Question number 2. How high is your electric bill currently?
Oh my. Is it
fantastic?
Too high? Maybe
it's probably crazy, but if you live in a place where you get a lot of sun, probably a lot. And so big shout out to check out this hat. Love the hat. EnLight.Energy. Guys, right now, yeah. Oh, well, you would have been a little early, but Julio Hernandez was a DSM in the mid 2000s. I think he started in 2000. So you guys might have missed each other by now, but he started EnLight.Energy. They're in the solar industry and they're doing phenomenal things and making huge waves out of Maryland and Florida and a bunch of different states. If you guys are looking to do something a little different, a sale every other week in solar earns you a 6-figure income, and they are able to work with anybody in any state. So reach out to us. Nick Taverdi's working there. I worked there for a while. And of course, Julio Hernandez, Alex Black, who's been a former guest. These guys are crushing it. They're giant expansion happening right now. And of course, they're looking for more people, especially book people. So reach out to us. We'll get you in touch with them.
I just sold a house with solar panels on it. So it's kind of fun to see. Yeah.
It's different, isn't it? It's a whole different. It's a whole different game. Yeah, It's a different game for sure. And then last but not least, a quick shout out to Cardinal. This is our last bit. We always give them a third shout out when they are currently working to expand. So again, when they started with us about 2 months ago, they had about 27 book people in their team. They're currently at 31. Plus, they have several more in the pipeline that are going to get started over the next month or two. If you've heard about them through this podcast, like this podcast is helping them grow their team, which is exciting. One of the main reasons that those alumni came on board with Cardinal is because both the culture and the selling system that they have set up. So they are doing really, really good stuff with mail-in leads, and they have pretty solid culture, a lot of really, camaraderie, the hands-on training, all that same stuff that we loved about Southwestern, but they remove all the bad parts. So there's no cold calling, there's no 80-hour work weeks. There is freedom. On top of that, you can make a pretty good living, 12 to 15K a week, working 31 to 35 hours. So we mentioned this before. They're in a growth mode. They're looking to double in 2022. So if you guys want to find out why so many people are going towards Cardinal right now that are from our show, go ahead and refer yourself to, or a friend. And we can't promise you a job here on the show. We can't guarantee a job, but you can for sure get an interview. And there's a $500 referral bonus for sending someone over. So that's all we got for you guys. That's it. All the shout outs we have today. Now,
are you telling me to make $500 with one phone call?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, if you know somebody who wants to go into insurance, let us know. Honestly, it's pretty cool because for us, it's great. We've gotten we've gotten some bonus from our partnership because they've hired multiple people from just the leads from this show.
Good idea.
So
that's a great way to recruit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we tell our jockeys. Our jockeys are our sponsors. Like, hey, we have the eyes and ears of several, I can't say exactly how many on air, but several thousand book people. Cool. So what do you want to say to them? That's right. Cool. That's the idea. Mm-hmm. All right, my brother. So ponytails, I feel like we have a couple of good ones. I need a good Sizzler one because you hinted at being almost arrested. So I need a good avoided the policía. I feel like that's a grande deal. And means big deal for people listening. And I know you know that, but you never know. And then you had another one earlier that you alluded to. I'm not exactly sure. So I know you got at least two, but the mic is yours. Go ahead, sir.
Of Sizzler tails, ponytails from Sizzlers, or just
I would love at least one Sizzler tail, but there was one that you said earlier about like your host families going up to Kansas City or something. Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of special because they when I was selling in Louisiana, there was this I really went street by street. So like I didn't check off a neighborhood until I got everybody on the street. And this one house, for some reason, I just kept going back to it. And when I first knocked on it, the kids were home. There was a babysitter there. And I was always smiling and laughing. And I said, okay, I'll come back later when your parents are home. And so I'm always smiling, laughing, waving, going on to the next house, going down the street. Well, so I come back when I see a car in the driveway and I see Mom there. And she's like, listen, I just got home. I got to get this done. I don't have time. And I go, no big deal. And I'll run and laughing. So I laugh and I run away, right? Don't even spend much time there. So I come back. So now it's at night. So now I'm coming, I knock on the door. Or no, it's the next day. Sorry, next day, knock on the door. And I go, hey, I thought I'd come back. And the kids are now calling me Mr. Laffy. So they're saying, Mr. Laffy's here. And so the mom's like, you won't believe this. My washer just exploded. There's water all over my laundry room. The kids are, all over the place. I don't have time, but I want you to come back. And I'm like, no big deal. And I just wave and just run off. Well, now I'm in a different subdivision, and now I got to keep on going back up to this house because I'm like, I want to meet this mom who's having a hard time, but they haven't said no. So I just keep on going back to this house, and the kids are cute, and she got 3 daughters, and it's Mom, and so I show up another time, and she's like, listen, I know. And the kids are like, Mr. Laffy's here. And then, I'm on the front porch. They're just talking to me. They have no idea what I'm selling. All they know is Mr. Laffy's here. And Lindsay, Rachel, and Mindy. Okay. the kids. I already know their names. I know what school they're in. I know their grades. Mom is awesome. And she goes, listen, I really want I really want my husband to be here. Why don't you come back, make us your last house? We will we want to see what you have. And I'm like, okay, I'm coming back.
Yes.
And so she goes, and I said, how about 9:30? Does that sound about right? Make you my last house. She goes, yeah. I go 9:15, 9:30. So, and I can't remember, I'm having a good day or whatever. And I get there and I go to the house. Nobody's home. Dark as night. She's like, she promised me she'd be home. So I park my car and I recline my seat. It's my last house, 9:15. And I recline and I wait for them. And I'm right outside their house and I snooze. I just start falling asleep. And I get a little tap on the window at 10:30. And they're like, hey! And I go, whoa, I was waiting for you guys. And they go, come on in. And I go, okay.
Nice.
And so, not 10:30, I can't remember. I just, I stayed at their house till 12:15. Like, I've never done this before. We were just chatting it up. They bought everything in my bag. They didn't even care what I had to say. I mean, we were just chiming it up. So, that was the summer of 1991, okay? Louisiana. Their daughter was a dancer, like just the school was in dance. Like, I'm going to do dance as my rehearsals, what all that stuff they do, right? She was such a good dancer. She was actually in the back. If you can think of Louisiana, what known singer in the early 90s was young from Louisiana? Britney Spears. So she was actually the same age around Britney Spears. So she was in the dancing backdrop of Britney Spears in the front. Oh, yeah. And so right about that time, Britney was just starting to hit with the Disney stuff. So now I stay in touch with these guys. Good friends, mom, her dad, Chuck, and I go back to sell 3 summers later north of Lake Pontchartrain, which is on that big lake up north of New Orleans. And in that, I would go down there and I'd go spend some time with them on my free time, like either after a Sunday. It's only a 20-minute drive. And I would go down there and we'd hang out, and I was selling north of the river, closer to Denham Springs and near Baton Rouge. But we spent a lot of time together. That would have been the summer of 94. And just grew this kinship, this friendship. Remember, Mindy was in 5th grade, Lindsay was in 2nd grade, and Rachel was in high school. So they're kind of spread out. So this time, 3 years later, now Mindy's in 5th grade, or Lindsay's in 5th grade. They're getting older. And so then, I only sell 2 more summers after that, nowhere near Louisiana. I go down for 1 trip, go visit them. And then Facebook starts hitting in. And others, so we're like best friends on Facebook media. But since then, her daughter goes to LSU, becomes a cheerleader there. They go to the national championship. Katrina hits. Their whole the whole area I sold in is underwater. So like now I'm asking them to come up to Kansas City and spend time with me. So that whole to this day. Lindsay, that little 2nd grader, has been all the way through college, became a Louisiana cheerleader, then went and became a Saints cheerleader, now has 2 kids, and is only like 3 houses down from what I knocked on and lives in the same neighborhood with her husband.
No way.
I know, it's so weird.
That's awesome.
So weird. Like, if I knocked on their door today, I'd be Mr. Laffy again. It would be it's just so cool to watch their life grow and change and all the stuff that's happened. And they've opened a restaurant. It's pretty neat. It's a very neat experience to have one relationship thrive out of all of those that you knock on those doors. You never know what's going to happen. But
That's
I don't know.
Pony.
There's not very many, big pony, but just a lot of neat people in that that you don't think you're going to stay in touch. And if it wasn't something like Facebook or other stuff, probably wouldn't, to be honest. I mean, once the technology started coming into play, it became more and more likely that we'd stay in touch and see how their families develop. It's pretty cool.
Sure.
Um,
I have a customer from my first summer that I still keep in touch with too, and it's so
Really?
fun. I mean, I'm sure we all do. Yeah, I'm sure we all do. This guy was a sheriff, and he was kind of he wasn't sketched out, but he was a sheriff, right? So after I sold him, he still kind of wanted to check out what I mean, some guy from Nebraska and upstate New York selling, and they're older, and they found my parents, and he sent them a note. I talked about this on the show before, but on Facebook, I have the picture somewhere of the note that he sent my mom. And he was
No
like,
way.
"Isn't that your son?"
That's
Yeah,
cool.
oh yeah, it was so fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool. You still keep in touch. He texted me when I got married, and I posted on Facebook that I got married, and so he saw it, and he sent me a message, and he was like, "Hey man, like congratulations, like hope
pretty
all is
cool.
well." Like this is amazing that you. I mean, dude, I knocked on your door. Like what the hell?
I know.
Like,
Yeah,
that's how we
right.
met. So strange.
Just out of that, you wouldn't think any of that stuff would last, kind of deal, but it does. I mean, I when I sold that summer, they were filming JFK, and I lived in downtown New Orleans, and Kevin Costner was filming like 3 blocks down from our house. And one of my book roommates was a cross country runner, so he would have to get up at like 5 o'clock so that he could get his 5 to 10 miles in, and he would run by their filming site like every morning. He'd run around where they were filming JFK, and he'd come back and he'd say, "Oh, I saw Gary Sneeze. Oh, I saw so and so. Oh, I saw so and so." And we would have this whole thing going on. That whole summer was New Orleans was fascinating, and we had our Sunday meetings at the Riverside Mall a couple of times, and Sissy Spacek was there. I mean, it was cool. That was a neat summer, like summer of '91, out of all those summers.
So wild.
And I met Greder that summer.
Yeah, that's a legendary summer, 91.
91. Yeah, a long time ago.
Damn.
But
all right, well, I gotta have at least one Sizzler story, and then we can wrap this one up.
There's so many.
Your favorite almost got arrested story.
When I was in Acapulco, that Kathy McGann was Nebraska. Sharon Lundquist. I think she was part of that group, but there was a handful of them that were. We all just hung out together, and we went to the mall there in Acapulco. I haven't been back. I think they would whistle me down if they did. And I was I had a few cervezas in me, and it was probably only 10:30 in the morning. But we were at the mall, and I happened to just want to show off, and I go running up the down escalator. So the escalator's coming down. I go run up the down escalator in the mall and get all these people from Nebraska laughing at me. And all of a sudden, I get to the top of the stairs. I'm exhausted. It was a lot of work to go up the down escalator. And all of a sudden, all I hear is whistles. Like they're chasing me. These police officers are all whistling, and they're pointing at me at the top of the escalator. And so they're all laughing down. I got them all laughing. Well, now the police are like, they're triangulating from the balcony of the mall, and they're chasing me. Like they're coming after me. And I don't know what to do. I'm like scared. So I go running into some clothing shop, and I go and I get inside the middle of the rack, almost like Paul Bart Mall Cart. And I get into the middle of the rack so they can't see me. Well, now Kathy and the other ones are all trying to find me because they want to get the heck out of there because they're like, you're going to get arrested. And I'm stuck in this one rack because if I move, they're going to find me. And I hear their darn whistles. That's the number one. If you're a police officer, stop whistling. They're still blowing their whistles, and they're trying to find me. And I can hear them on the outside of the department store. And so then I see Kathy, and I whisper to them. I go, guys, take them away. Get them away from here because I don't want to get arrested. And so then I see an opening, and I'm like, okay, 2 of them are going down over here, and 2 of them are going over here. There's like 4 mall cops. And I don't know why they're chasing me down, but all I know is that if I get into Mexican prison, it's over. Like, I'm not going to get anywhere with Mexico. And so I see them, they separate, and the escalator's right in the middle. and I just bolt for the down escalator, and I ride it down as fast as I can, and I don't even look back. Like, I just don't want to get caught, and I run straight out of the mall. And then I hide. There's no cell phones. There's no way to reach my friends in the mall. Like, they have no idea where I'm at, and it's not like I'm in a familiar place. Like, I don't even know where hiding would be good. This is the first time as I was 18 and I leave Kansas for the first time to go sell books. Well, this is the first time I leave the country, and I was flabbergasted that they had AK-47s in front of banks. So then I was scared that, oh my gosh, what if there's a bank near the mall and they're just going to start shooting at me? So, like, I'm like just like so scared and naive that they're going to triangulate and find me. And I obviously didn't get busted, but I can't remember how I got out of that. And I ended up rendezvousing with them really quick. I think I just watched the door, and they ended up coming out of that mall. But that was pretty scary at 18, for sure.
That's, I mean, yeah, we had our first Sizzler. We had a person that almost got arrested. I think one of us did get arrested, but it was, even as a person just outside looking in, I'm like, damn, that's scary. Like, Mexican prison, man, that's good. That's different.
There's no way you're getting out. No way you're getting out. And
it's different. Oh, you gotta have. I mean, there goes your summer earnings.
Right.
You can get out, but there goes your summer
back. Yep, that's for sure. Yep. But I had plenty of book stories. I think I got arrested more than anybody in the bookfield. So I don't know if that's a bragging right or if it's just the number of summers I had. I don't know, but it's quite a trip. It's quite a trip.
Amazing. Oh man, damn.
Yep.
Well, here's what we do. We can tell some more of those in Grant's episode, because now I know I got a guy. This has been too fun. We have to have you back with Grant Greder, because that's gonna be blow the top off of this thing.
I don't know if we almost got arrested in Australia or New Zealand, but on our trip, we had plenty of times where we did things that were probably not legal at that time in foreign countries, and I'm glad they spoke. That's all. So I could talk my way out of it. So
Grant Greder and Andrew Kneisler, the two best friends anybody could
have.
Right,
babe.
That's right.
That's right. Meow meow. Meow meow.
That's meow
the meow did originate. The meow did originate in Australia, just so you know. He knows. Meow.
Are you talking about when you'd have like book kids be like meow?
Grant's always meow. If you know Grant, he always meows. So it's like there's a meow for every occasion, and I don't know how he does
into the conversation.
Meow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or like, I don't know if you have a quick second, right? Meow, Mrs. Jones. Like you'd have to sneak it in to the approach. Like there's a meow. There's always a meow.
Well, so I'm going to tell you real quick, just so you know, that the origination of that was Grant and I kept on checking out all the hot chicks as we were backpacking. Okay. And so it just got too obvious that we would go, Grant, there's a chick over there, and we'd point, right?
She's cute.
So
yeah.
We had to do it differently. And I said, okay, here's our code. I'll make a little meow sound and I'll tell you what time it is. And so if I go meow 3 o'clock, that means she's over there. Meow 12 o'clock. And so that was his and I's internal communication while we're on this bus traveling through Australia, trying to find a way to communicate to each other so we didn't look so like American.
Beautiful.
And for some reason, it never stopped.
Beautiful.
The meows never stopped after that.
That's beautiful. Now you know. In Spanish, we say, "Hey, someone's talking to you." Someone's talking to you. What?
Yeah. There you go. Where?
Hey, someone says, "Devlin." What?
That's it.
Oh, that's brilliant, man. Oh man, this has been fun. Look, we did 2 hours and 52 minutes. How's this been? Is it all right? We're okay?
Yeah. Did great.
My man, this has been so fun. Okay, so a couple of things. One, thank you so much for being on here and sharing with us. This has been, I love what I do. And this is what I'm constantly reminded of how lucky I am. So thank you.
You're good at it. You're good at it.
I appreciate that. I honestly can't do it. I think I had the gift of gab, which is good. That's why I'm this part of the team, but the whole operation is ran by a total of 6 other people. And so they couldn't do without any of them.
There's a production for sure. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
My dad was a disc jockey, just so you know. So that was my dad's profession. No, not that type of disc jockey. He was born in the 30s, so he was a disc jockey on the radio. Yeah. Yeah. More of like a presenter, like taking you from one thing to another. Yeah. Disc jockey.
I see. I understand. That's like the OG DJ.
And a reporter. He was a reporter, news reporter too. Yeah. So like combination of all those. And so he did his own advertising. We did our own advertising on the radio when we were kids. He had his own advertising agency. So that's what ended up happening is he went into advertising after the DJ life.
Hey, when you got the media and the eyeballs, advertising is the way to go. That's what we've learned anyway.
I know.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know why the term DJ changed into making the music. The DJ really just sent you in the direction of the music. You know, they just didn't play them. So he was just really a presenter. And you do a really good job of controlling your voice and directing the conversation and listening well. So you do a really good job at it.
Yeah, Thank you, sir. That means a lot. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's really nice to hear. Well, awesome, man. Well, this has been so fun. We'll probably wrap it up here.
Sure.
This has been a cool episode. Again, quick question. If people are in Kansas City or if people want to get a hold of you to either learn about how to be part of your team or how to like whatever, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? Was it,
anytime. Yeah, realnicehomes.com is my website. Real Nice Listings is all my houses I sell. Real Nice Estate is one of the houses I have right now that's on some land. Real Nice Home is a build job that I'm building right now with one of my clients. But any of those, they can go and learn more about what I do and how we do it in Kansas City. But buying or selling real estate is all we do. So
now, is it Real Nice as in like the actual word NICE, or is it your last name?
No,
we have it on screen there.
It's already complicated, so I kept it simple. Real Nice Homes. Real like real estate, nice like me, and homes like what I sell. So,
you are pretty nice.
Keep it simple.
I appreciate it. So if you guys have more questions for Andrew, if you're looking to kind of get in or out of real estate, if you want to buy or sell a home, if you're in the Kansas City area and you want to link up, whatever applies to you, make sure you reach out that way. Real Nice Homes is probably realnicehomes.com, and you can find a contact us form. It'll get you to Andrew.
That'll get to me.
Man, thank you so much. We'll wrap this one up, guys. Thank you so much. We'll keep an eye out, and the rest of July we have Roger Smith coming up as well, and then Dustin.
I like
Hillis.
Roger. Yeah, I've actually hosted several of his kids at my house. His territory, he always picks up here. So I've hosted
nice.
Roger Smith's cruise from North Carolina. He's a good guy. I like Roger a lot.
He is a good guy. So so he'll be in July, and then of course Dustin Hillis is going to be on in September. So keep an eye out for that episode as well. A couple of the big names, Grant, Greder, and Andrew, are going to have to come back and visit. So keep an eye out for that. And of course Lee and JT Olson. So on that note, my name is Andres Gamboa. We'll see you guys later. Peace.